I am not an animal. I am an audio program. I am a podcast.
Is that insensitive?
Huh.
It had to be done.
It had to be done. Of course, it's the famous line from The Elephant Man.
Yes.
The film we're talking about today.
Yeah.
I don't think it's insensitive.
I don't think it's insensitive. I don't think so.
But is like, you know, he's the elephant. His name is the Elephant Man. The movie's called The Elephant Man.
Correct.
That's insensitive.
That is.
And yet also it's sort of like, yes, but of course that's how we discuss this person and his legacy.
If you found what I just did insensitive, I suggest you hold a mirror up to your own face.
Wow, coming right at people who might find that insensitive.
Also, maybe throw your complaints at Lieutenant Frank Drebin first, who made that joke 35 years ago. It is funny that this film was mainstream enough that The Naked Gun parodied it.
And The Critic or The Simpsons? Who had the... I mean, it's the kind of thing they... Was it on The Critic? There was like a very notable Elephant Man cartoon.
Yes. I think it was
a gag in my life.
The Critic, yeah.
Let's see. I'm seeing if... Oh, well, actually, right. That's not helpful to just type Elephant Man, The Critic. That just loads like Rotten Tomatoes.
Sure.
The problem with it, they didn't think about that when they made The Critic. Bad SEO.
Add the words Jay Sherman.
Yeah, Jay Sherman.
I just feel like one of those shows had an Elephant Man character.
David,
think there's a Simpsons one.
It stinks.
It stinks.
Well, Daryl Strawberry, of course, gets Elephant Man disease from drinking the juice.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, this is The Critic parodying Elephant Man. Pretty good Anthony Hopkins. Like, you know,
the caricature?
Like they do a good job drawing him, right?
Yeah.
But it's Jay Sherman and he's like standing and they're all like poking at him.
Mm-hmm.
But he just looks like Jay Sherman. It doesn't look like it was that funny. No offense to Jay Sherman and The Critic, which is obviously often funny.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not making.
So
like,
what's something you would say if something
reel.
like wasn't that good?
David, what would you say?
It stinks.
Okay.
Is Daryl Strawberry the one who gets the elephantitis?
Yeah,
he gets
Ken Griffey.
No, it's Ken Griffey who gets the engorged head. Yes, from drinking the tonic too much. Right. Wait, so what happens to Daryl Strawberry? Now
That's
I'm trying to remember.
His Simpsons wiki
if I can remember,
is very thin.
Are you better than me? I've never met you, but yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean, obviously a very funny line.
I want to see if either of you can recall this, because I'd say it's surprising what his outcome is.
I want to go through some of the ones I do remember.
Doesn't he get sent to work somewhere?
Okay. Don Mattingly, Burns keeps telling him to like shave that beard or whatever it is, and he keeps like shaving all of his body hair.
Sideburns.
Right, it's a sideburn, right. And he's never satisfied.
Yes.
Great gag. I think Ozzie Smith ends up in like a sort of vortex. Like he goes to like
that's what I
like some like tourist attraction that's just like a spinning vortex,
like floating in space.
What else? I think is it Steve Sachs who gets punched by Barney over which British Prime Minister is better, Lord Palmerston or Pitt the Elder?
It sounds right, but also the kind of thing you would remember.
No, apparently that's Wade Boggs. Okay, fair enough. I don't think I remember anyone else.
Okay.
Obviously, there are many more fates. There's a lot of players.
Okay, so the twist is that Daryl Strawberry is both the one who goes to work and just starts gigging at the power plant.
He likes the power plant.
But also nothing bad happens to him. He just takes to the power plant, doesn't want to play baseball. He's the only one who doesn't have an unfortunate fate. Steve Sachs is pulled over by Eddie and Lou, and accused of murder, faces 6 consecutive life sentences.
Right. They like sweat him in the interrogation room.
Mike Scotia has radiation poisoning.
Right.
Ken Griffey gets gigantism from the tonic. Jose Canseco gets caught saving things out of the house fire.
Right. He keeps having to go back in.
Right. Wade Boggs punched by Barney over the Prime Minister argument. Ozzie Smith stuck in the Springfield mystery spot, the void. Roger Clemens thinks he's a chicken because of the hypnotist. And Don Mattingly goes down the rabbit hole of shaving himself. Okay, great.
Such a funny episode.
Just an appalling tangent to have already. Let me see what the clock says here. 4 minutes.
Alex, you think this is one of the 10 best films ever made?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And here we are running down the list of the Burns isotopes, fates.
That is appropriate for, I wouldn't say for this episode, but for an episode you were on.
It is allowed.
We have talked about it. You do 50% of your communication is done through Simpsons references. Yes. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good number.
Yeah. A gentleman's 50.
Unrecognized sometimes or unlauded.
Sometimes you're looking for a round of applause in the group text that you do not get. Is that fair to say?
Only when I'm very quick on the draw with a very bizarre reference.
It is. The speed is always impressive.
That's what I aim for.
Yeah.
I'm very low energy today because I've been sick and I'm very nervous about.
I was also sick all of last week. Nervous about this episode?
Well, I just don't really have the fire in me right now. And yesterday when I was describing my sickness to David, he said, sounds like what Griffin's had. And I said, I feel like I currently feel how I think Griffin always feels.
That's probably true. You got a case.
Sick and my stomach's been hurting and I haven't eaten for like 5 days.
That's a classic case of the Griffs.
One of those things where it's like, what is it? It's like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of breaches of the wall here.
It's just not
right?
working.
Like, it's not just like, I have a cold.
It's just straight up not working.
This is the best I've felt in 5 days, but I still don't have a lot of juice.
The way you feel right now is probably my high water mark. It's the best I ever feel.
Well, as my buddy said, as a kid, not much older, he's like, our max is 60%.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point. Like, you don't have anything above that anymore.
No.
But maybe that's a good way to talk about the Elephant Man, about like struggle and no, I don't know.
Yeah, a man whose max was pretty low.
He had a really tough time. Now
the great tragedy of his life, a low max.
Worried this episode is going to be kind of insensitive to the Elephant Man. I do feel
John Merrick.
We have a cold, and I'm like, it's kind of like being the Elephant Man.
John Merrick.
John Merrick, yes,
have
the
you
real
ever,
Joseph Merrick, just FYI. But you can say his name wrong if you want.
Have you ever had a movie with a disabled protagonist, a handicapped protagonist? Any movies that you have to not dance around, but address the fact
maybe
that
You count Gump?
Constantly, you can count Gump.
That counts.
One of the most sensitive films ever made.
I feel like culture kind of made it. Culture, what's the way to describe that? Like, culture just kind of made clowning on the mentally disabled totally acceptable because of how popular that movie was.
Yeah, well, but also it's because it's like creating this sort of like magical condition that is so sort of like both nebulous and all-encompassing that you're like, what are you actually making fun of here? It felt like there was this collective cultural mulligan of like, what's Gump? I don't know. He's just weird.
You guys ever
There's
think
a bunch
about
of stuff going on with that
what
guy.
it would have been like if Gump had encountered Merrick?
Oh, I think about it all the time.
He probably would have inspired him in some way, or at least inspired the carnies to give up their cruel pursuits.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. What would Gump have taught Merrick to do?
It's like
to move on.
Yeah, I think
It's actually the worst alleyway we backed ourselves into.
It's awful.
Listen,
to be clear, he's not weird. He's intellectually disabled in the film, and the film is clear about that, I will say. It's not like a doctor ever says that, but that's what's going on with Forrest Gump.
They make it kind of magical.
Yes, that movie is a nightmare. I don't want to talk about it. It's so bad. Like, and the way it treats that is not great.
Listen,
I would say.
Listen.
So that's the only other challenge
now
protagonist.
I'm looking at our episode
Well, of course,
list.
the judge.
That's another one
of
that
the
does
most
the exact same thing.
Yes.
There's something up with him, right?
But it's like magically, narratively convenient. It's whatever it needs to be in any given scene.
I think there's a lot of movies we've covered with this, and we're just sort of blanking it out because it always is like, ugh, you don't want to remember that.
Well, it's not like, I guess we'll talk about the Elephant Man.
Well, excuse me. Michael Moore in Lucky Numbers.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, Ben.
Look, there's the fulcrum point. The first half of your career on Blank Check was defined by picking the least essential movie of every director. And early on, you sort of called your shot of what your game was, and you said, like, if you guys ever do McTiernan, I'm doing Basic.
We talked about Split, obviously. That was a very, contentious, heated discussion of, like, how much should we be, like, using dissociative identity disorder to be, like, a crazy supervillain who has, multiple personalities and is like, I'm a baby. Hello, I'm a lady, which is what's going on in Split.
Correct.
Now, in Split, I think that is over the top and interesting in its silliness.
Yeah, I wish they
But at the same time,
10% further.
Me going, hello, I'm a lady, is basically what's happening in Split.
Yes.
Hello. I just like thinking about that.
Well, that's what Mrs. Doubtfire says.
Yeah,
I don't
now
know
I'm
who
getting
you're
real
quoting
Doubtfire
right now.
This movie is, it is not a classic, like, oh, I forget he directed that.
Well, this is what's interesting, right? So, like, that was the first half of your career to the extent that when we did McTiernan finally recently, and I should mention, this is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want and sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce. Baby, this is a miniseries on the films of David Lynch. It is called Twin Pods Firecast with me.
Yes.
Today we're talking about his second theatrical film.
Oh God, this is only our second episode. Okay, now we got to lock in to The Elephant Man.
Yes.
Serious work.
The Elephant Man.
Book of Henry.
His guarantor.
Does that have any depictions of
No?
Like that's not its issue. It has other issues, right? I guess Henry he's sort of like super smart or something.
Yeah, he's got smartest boy disorder.
Yeah. You don't want to talk about old Henry?
You don't want to talk about Henry?
No.
People do need to start gamifying like the episode bingo cards, and it's like I had Book of Henry coming up 10 minutes into the Elephant Man episode, so I get that on my bingo card.
Right. I actually that was a 400 to 1, and I laid $100 on that. I'm rich as hell.
Yeah, I feel like that's the next blank check game.
Look, we all saw.
Is Trevorrow making another movie?
Yeah, he's making
Cumberbatch. Should we call this now at the time of our recording that we think by the time the episode comes out, Trevorrow is directing Blade? No, I think he's doing he's doing a magician spy espionage movie with Benedict Cumberbatch.
That does ring a bell.
David, if you don't want to go on the tangents, you need to stop bringing up nothing but tangents.
Yeah, David.
I like the tangents, and I support them.
And we'll come back to Trevorrow.
Okay, we'll come back to Trevorrow. We're putting a pin in it.
Trevorrow or Trevorrow?
It's Trevorrow.
Like tomorrow. That's how he introduces himself.
Right.
Trevorrow.
Right.
Sorry, Colin.
We were wrong the first couple years of the show. And then when
many are wrong.
When we released our episode here today, Gone Trevorrow.
Like, you're being really neat to this guy.
But for the first time, we also showed him the respect of getting his name right.
Right.
There was a trade-off there. Listen, the point is, at some point, your game shifts. And the last 4 times you've been on the show, this episode included, you have picked one of like the core movies of your life. The run of Halloween, Clockwork Orange, Fight Club, Elephant Man.
I know, I don't want to keep doing that, but I guess you're finally getting around to the Titans.
The canon.
Yeah.
Right. And this was one of your Sight and Sound 10?
Yeah.
You don't have to sound so despondent about it.
No, that's just my energy level today.
By default, I assume this is your favorite Lynch movie.
It is, yeah.
I think this is mine as well. And I cannot help but feel like, is that a basic asshole opinion?
But asshole opinion.
It does feel like this is weirdly kind of his forgotten movie now for how beloved it was at the time and how much it kind of makes his career.
Straight Story and this are the clear winners. And 6 years ago, I would have picked that just as a bit.
Sure. But Straight Story now feels like it has overtaken this as, oh, it's weird. That's his normal movie.
Right.
Where like Straight Story, I think almost gets more recognition as part of the Lynch oeuvre than this does, where this is almost seen as an aberration. And I think this movie is such a fascinating, like, perfect match of material and person to meet in the middle.
I think that way as well. I doubt that what you just said about Straight Story is actually true.
Are we just like two fucking letterbox poisons?
I just think people enjoy saying, like, did you know that David Lynch made a movie for Disney?
Right.
In the fabled year of cinema, 1999.
He did.
Yes.
One of the best films in 1999.
And even though it was a nominated film and
it was a movie. Yeah.
By no means a well-remembered film, the recollection of which was just obliterated by him making Mulholland Drive 2 years later.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It is his least seen film on Letterboxd, I will say.
Interesting.
Which is, I use Letterboxd only as I find it to be a good gauge of like young people today,
yes.
right? The youth today.
What is the ranking of seen?
Like, it's like if you sort by popularity, right? Like his filmography, Mulholland Drive is number 1, Blue Velvet's number 2, Eraserhead is number 3, Elephant Man.
Just people who have logged it.
Elephant Man is number 4. The reason for that, I think, is this is still a well-liked movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's such an iconic story beyond
it's
the
not
movie.
a forgotten film.
Right. Do people, instantly recall that it's one of Lynch's, like, sort of most successful in terms of, like, critics' awards?
It is the most
money.
Transformative movie in his career. If
This
want
movie
to talk
is
about
ahead
Maybe not
for
so much
views
anymore.
of the young people. Of Lost Highway,
Correct.
Wild at Heart, and Fire
Yes.
Walk With Me.
Correct.
That is wild.
Yeah,
At
it is
heart.
a little surprising.
Wild
It
at
is
Heart.
Wild at Heart. It is on Disney Plus now, but
I was
I
about
feel
to
like
say, it's also an easier movie to see.
it wasn't for
Wild
a
at
while.
Heart is impossible
Was
to
never
see.
on Blue. Has still never been on Blue. You're right. Wild at Heart is like
Wild at
weirdly
Heart is not
unwatchable.
streaming at all.
I feel like Blue Velvet is also not rentable now.
No, I don't know.
bought
I
it
watched it on MGM Plus.
on iTunes, but I noticed recently it was less available than it had
but like,
been.
Wild at Heart, there's clearly something up
You're
with that
setting
one because
up
it's hard to see.
one of the most important things about Lynch.
Okay.
Which we will. Well, we can just get into it now while we're
Yeah.
on the subject. But I'm curious what the rest of the.
Of the list?
I'm just curious what order these movies rank in the sort of cultural I've seen.
You want me to keep going?
I mean, there's only like
Mulholland
5
Drive,
more.
Blue Velvet, Razorhead, Elephant Man. Lost Highway is 5th. Firewalk with Me is 6th. Dune is 7th. Wild at Heart is 8th. Inland Empire is 9th. Straight Story is 10th.
Wild.
Okay, great stories. Yeah,
And
Yeah.
Dune probably.
And like the Twin Peaks pilot is on Letterboxd. You know, that's in between like
you
Dune
have to
and Wild at
imagine
Heart.
Dune also just like bumped up a spot or two in the last 2 or 3 years.
Probably. Yeah.
With the youngins watching
Yeah,
after.
no, look, a lot of this stuff though, it's like, you know, I mean, Lost Highway, that probably bumped up because Balthazar Getty had a moment. No, I'm joking.
well, that got
yeah.
widely restored, re-released.
It's the Criterion re-release will help her with something like
And
that.
I feel like
of
it played
course.
for
right.
6 months in theaters last year.
His movies do that. Chunk of them are kind of constantly in rep screening.
That's why I'm
rotation
surprised this is higher than the ones that I feel probably screen monthly.
because I don't feel
in
like
New
this
York or
movie
LA.
screens much.
It screens often enough that I've probably seen it in the theater 3 or 4 times.
The only reason we should be talking about this, which we are, is like, I do think it's, yes, obviously, the Elephant Man's legacy is secure,
Yeah.
as you say, right? Like,
And
there's no
was sort of like
forgetting this movie.
seen as an unqualified triumph when it came out.
But I do think it is interesting, right? How, I mean, we talk about this in the Blue Velvet episode, which is coming up.
Yeah.
Of like, what is the is Blue Velvet still the definitive Lynch movie?
Well,
Or
you've
did
now brought
Mulholland
up-
Drive kind of replace
You brought
it?
up one of I feel like I put this challenge to you guys,
Which is a stupid
years
question
and years
and
ago.
doesn't need an
Our guest
answer,
today,
to
by
be
the way,
clear.
is Alex Ross Perry.
I'm back.
He's back.
Maybe number 10?
Is
or
this
at least
10?
in the I don't know. In the neighborhood.
Taking Woodstock, The
I
Key,
can look it up.
I wouldn't remember all of them, but
Lucky Numbers,
Insomnia.
Insomnia,
Okay, well, your guys, okay. Insomnia, Hollow Man,
Hollow Man.
Taking Woodstock, The Keep, Lucky Numbers, that's 5.
Mhm.
Halloween, Clockwork Orange, Fight Club. So this is 9.
Wow.
It's not including you've showed up on some
Patreon.
Patreon
RPG.
episodes. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, but for Maine. All right, so we'll get there. What was I going to say? Oh, I asked you guys this years ago, and it's more urgent now than ever for 2
Okay.
reasons.
Okay.
Because I said the thought exercise, I've always had this. David, is he the only? And he's not, but I have 2 others.
Okay.
The only filmmaker that you can credibly say, you could make an argument that is not laughable, that his later period is maybe his best period beyond his most important period. Because any filmmaker you can think of,
We talk about this a lot. The later years are usually
you could
a
make the
decline.
argument that the Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks, The Return period is the most essential period of his work.
I think you could very easily.
Now,
make
I'm
it.
not-
obviously, like
saying
discounting
that's-
people who die tragically young or suddenly.
course,
forgetting that.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that that is a correct argument, but I'm
Right.
saying that in many cases, to make an argument like that would be ludicrous.
No,
you would
no,
be, you would be, making a contrarian point for the sake of trying to say, well, yeah, Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., that run is good, but I really think like the post 9/11 Spielberg run is it's like, okay, the case can be made that he made 6 masterpieces.
Yes.
That's not his best period.
But also at this point, that's his like mid-career.
Yes.
It would
It's
be like
true. His
arguing
career's
that
so long
the
now.
post.
It
you know,
doesn't.
was-
It doesn't
right.
matter what it is. My whole argument is like there's so few filmmakers where someone could say no, like Eraserhead, Blue Velvet. That is like clearly his peak.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's the early part of someone's career.
Sure.
It would if someone said I have to say Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks: The Return. That's his peak. No one would go. That is an insane argument.
Not only that, but it's like those 2 things you're talking about, and including Inland Empire, which is perhaps a little less loved, but I think fits into this. It's like the guy is still evolving. Like those 3 projects are seen by people as like the guy is unlocking new things.
The other director I always
growing.
put in that category, who was also up for Return of the Jedi, is Cronenberg.
Yes.
The only other person I ever felt you could convincingly say, like, I don't love Scanners and
Right, it's actually
Videodrome
the
and
back
Fly.
half of his career, like Spider onwards.
Yeah,
is like the most
someone could easily
deep and
say, like,
intellectual.
those
part
early
of his
movies
career.
just are
Right.
simply not the height for me.
Yeah.
That later sort of acclaim, Eastern Promises, like that is clearly, and you wouldn't say, you know what, you're right. You'd go, the case can be made. And I think in most directors' cases, the case cannot be made.
There's also a little
and
bit
I've recently
more,
added George Miller to this very rarefied list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I agree, but the case can now be made.
The Tarantino thing, obviously, of like him being like, I'm going to retire because, like nobody's good at the back half of their career anyway. It always comes into a decline. And then people like, Scorsese or Spielberg are out there being like, look, we're still making amazing movies. By and large, I think you're right. Bergman, I remember we had a long conversation about this once.
They're like
Bergman
30
is
to
the
50 30 to 50 films, people.
Right.
It gets a little harder to say.
But like Bergman is the one where his last 4 movies or 5 movies, it's like Cries and Whispers, Scenes from a Marriage, Face to Face, Autumn Sonata, Fanny and Alexander, where you're like, he may have actually crested late. But then with Bergman or someone like that, like the long film runs, like you can also just kind of be like, yeah, but no, I prefer this bit.
Sure.
Right, like, because he's got so many peaks.
Yeah, you couldn't say, you could, but it would be very hard to say. Like, credibly, I don't think he made Persona during his best period.
Right.
Whereas, like, you could say, like, no, I don't
Lynch,
think,
you could be like, no, he actually had room to grow, right,
Yeah.
or whatever.
There's
like,
people that were just always the same, always good, and made a movie a year. That's a little trickier to say, like.
Yeah.
But
I love talking about this stuff.
he is. Well, it's a good thing you have the show.
That's what I'm saying. Like, isn't it fun?
It just
that I
feels
get to do
it's
this?
incredibly rare for someone to be. And one of the things I was thinking about is like this filmmaker who you're talking about. In a way that very few people do. Spielberg, another one, which is why their eventual team up is so important. He has a defining movie of the 70s. He has a defining movie of the 80s. I would argue that Twin Peaks is a defining cultural work of the 90s.
Yeah,
it's not a single movie.
Yeah.
And he has a defining work of the 2000s. And
Yeah.
almost, I would say, a defining work of the 2010s.
Yeah, if you
100%.
Mulholland for 2000s and Return for 2010s, I think
that is
I
one
think you're right.
And it's strange. It's not like everything is defining, but he is one of the rarest people where it's like, he has 5 decades where one of his films could just be on the cover of a book called Moving Images of the Decade.
Yeah.
Moving Images of the 80s, Blue Velvet's on the cover. No further questions.
yeah.
Moving Images of the 2000s, Mulholland Drive. Perfect choice for the cover.
Right.
And
Eraserhead on the cover of the 70s.
yeah,
No one's
it'd be
like,
a weird
who
choice,
the fuck chose
but
that?
It'd be a weird choice, but
We
not
could
an insane
give
one.
it some props. Here's an interesting exercise. Alex, your Sight and Sound top 10 list this was for 2022?
That's right.
Yep.
Clockwork Orange.
Love it.
You covered
Check,
on this show.
covered, you did the episode. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Add the it's messier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I put the recent remake on my Sight and Sound list, Michael Mann style.
You loved it. That
recent
he
legacy
carves
sequel.
people up in a bus. That's the only thing I remember from that one.
Psycho,
Great movie.
parenthetical 1960. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
The Elephant Man being covered right now, clearly, on the episode where we talked about Homer at the Bat.
Great film.
Next movie you're about to say is the next miniseries we're doing. We're doing our John Eustache.
Could be a short one.
Mother and the Whore.
Yeah. Long movies, short mini.
Dennis Hopper's the last movie.
Mother and the Whore would be a movie where I think my episode wouldn't be as long as the movie, which could be.
Right. It
possible.
would be very tough
Yeah,
to
last movie.
Yeah.
You guys feasibly should
we
consider.
could do Hopper.
We could do Hopper.
Yeah,
We could
Mother
throw
and
him on the
Whore.
Hopper.
To
that's
be clear,
a real Ben series.
it's like 3 hours and 45 minutes long, The Mother and the Horse. So,
Yeah, that's the
very long.
That's very long.
There's no clock above their heads while they were making that one.
Rosemary's Baby, Rushmore, Blowout, The Brown Bunny.
All great movies.
Which of these movies is most likely to be covered next on the show?
Next.
So, I guess I think Toby Hooper, as much as that's a very interesting filmography, that's probably not coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
More likely you do Texas
We could
Chainsaw
do
on Patreon.
a franchise commentary on that. Hopper is one of those things where it's like, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I don't think we're rushing to that either.
No, but it'd be interesting to do. And I love that. I
I'm
love
not
that
gonna-
movie.
Polanski
I'm not gonna
on the
spoil
books.
anything.
Let's
Done.
do it.
But you guys have you've said that one of your dozens of March Madness ideas is an all maniacs bracket and all weirdos.
Yes.
And Hopper would be a great contender for the these are just 32 insane filmmakers and you're
As would Vincent Gallo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although he might be tough to put on any bracket.
I have
at this
a
point.
notes app that's like 5 different ideas for possible March Madnesses where I've done the experiment of, are there 32 you could fit
I think
in?
at some point you just said we might do all sickos.
Yeah.
Sicko bracket.
There was also one time as a thought experiment, we were like, could we put 32 canceled people onto a bracket?
I've had that thought as well.
Oops,
whenever
only canceled. We'll never do it, but it was
But
like,
so how-
could you fill up 32? And we filled up. It was really fast.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I think Wes Anderson or Brian De Palma are probably the most
I
likely
agree.
people
Yes.
for us to do sometime in the next few years.
Yes. And I feel like you've gotten a little warmer on the Wes idea, which you maybe were a little more against a couple years ago, post Asteroid
Yeah, but I
City.
like to make everyone think that I hate him
Of course.
and would hate the miniseries.
Much like I hate Hot Fuzz.
Right.
I
it's just
fuck, I blew it.
just to rattle everyone.
I gotta pretend I like the movie.
It's better than my freaking boring ass sight and sound list.
Okay, David's
Well,
list.
this was unimpeachable. Thank you for reading it.
A Matter of Life.
Wow, just snores coming from. Yep, there you go. Ben's happy.
Lots of Matter of Life and Death. Late Spring. McCabe, Mrs. Miller. Ding, 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 ding. Circled.
Yep.
Alien, we've covered on Patreon. Do the Right Thing. Lost This. March Madness.
Spike Lee. It's
To David Lynch. Chungking Express. Feels Inevitable.
Yes.
Beau Travail.
Should be interesting. Claire Denis.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of good stuff to say about the series.
And what's this at the bottom of my list?
Ding, 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 ding. Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much the
Top
best
10
movie
for you,
ever made.
Mulholland Drive. You should do an episode about it.
No, we're
Planning
gonna
on
skip that one.
it. Oh yeah, we're gonna skip that one. We'll just kind of be like, yeah, that one's good. 5 stars. See you later.
The
Elephant
Elephant Man.
Man.
The Elephant Man.
The Elephant Man.
He has a defining work in 5 decades.
Yeah.
He's
He
a weird
does.
guy.
And I wouldn't put it past him to somehow have one in this decade. Like, I mean, I don't know, but if he made one more thing, you never know.
How funny was it when 2 weeks ago he was like, something's coming.
Yes.
And everyone's like, oh, what's it going to be?
Our
It's like-
Reddit
and
was
I
like fucking new Twin Peaks
could
season,
it
feature-length
be
film.
a irrelevant music release that nobody cares about?
Almost definitely.
Let me just assume that he's putting out another album.
Or a new blend of coffee. I had a little money on new
Well,
blend
he
of
said
coffee.
for your eyes and ears. He didn't
Oh,
say
sure.
for your taste buds and your tummy or whatever
Hey, look,
childish language he would favor.
David Lynch isn't going to tell you how to ingest coffee. You could put it in your eyes and ears if you wanted to.
I could see David Lynch saying tummy.
Absolutely.
Ben,
see
do
him
you
saying
know
that word.
I forget if this was the name of his album or his single, but do you know that he recently put out an album or a song called Crazy Clown Time?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Crazy Clown Time.
Yeah.
Can you picture him saying that in his voice?
Absolutely.
Crazy clown time. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, when you say recently, because he's about to put out a new album.
That's what he
we were
just
just talking about.
teased.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Crazy Clown Time was
was
like
from a little
an
while
album
back.
or two ago.
Yeah.
He
But
just
I have
puts out
heard the
albums.
song, and it's insane.
He, like, puts
his
out-
music's kind of crazy.
What?
Like obviously,
But is it
Lynchian?
like crazy clown crazy?
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of clown crazy.
Like kind of circus music?
I don't know. It's just you expect him. I've really expected his music to sound a certain way, and then I've been going
More like
through a
Olivia
lot of the
Rodrigo's
albums.
guts. You thought it was going to be more sort of like confessional pop.
I'm just saying. I assumed like based on like his movies always having like really fantastic music, and then you listen, it's just kind of like. It's like insane. I don't even know. Like his singing voice is really weird.
I
was
would
very
describe it as like crazy
surprised.
clown time.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
crazy
kind of the
clown
vibe of his music.
I forget if it was if that was the song, then the album was Good Day Today, or if the album was Crazy Clown Time, then the song was Good Day
Good
Today.
question.
And I never listened to any of this, obviously, but I just can picture him in his voice
Do you folks agree?
repeating these words in a "Don't forget to wear sunscreen" Boz Luhrmann kind of spoken word non-song song.
Do you folks agree with me that this movie is like the single most transformative step of his career? In that, were it not for this, you could imagine him just being like, I make movies like Eraserhead.
Well, it's very
I
important.
work wildly outside of the system.
I got very
Maybe.
nervous watching it because I love
Yeah.
it. I love it more than almost any other movie. And watching it, I had this creeping fear that this is not a very interesting movie.
I think it's incredibly
Well, it's
interesting.
incredibly interesting in the
Yes.
body of his career, but it is not a movie
You mean like to discuss?
to
like it's not-
analyze, to
yeah,
dissect,
sure.
to theorize. Like, come in, talk Clockwork Orange. 10 people could write 10 dissertations on different meanings of that movie.
Sure.
This movie is what it is.
Yeah.
And it is perfect, in my opinion.
I
But-
agree.
But that's why it's interesting to discuss because
I
it
agree
is-
because
yeah.
it's very strange that this was his second film.
Because it's basically someone who maybe was going to construct a career almost exclusively as an avant-garde artist, not being forced to like tell a straightforward story, but this is his most narratively conventional film.
Sure.
It is a most emotionally direct film. I mean, the competition for this is Straight Story, but Straight Story, as he's always said, is like very weird narratively. It's kind of bottled emotionally.
When that came out, people worked a lot harder to bend over backwards to place it somewhere in his oeuvre.
Right.
Whereas this had no oeuvre, and this was what now is a classic a classic thing. Some guy made an underground sensation, and then they hired him to make some big movie. And guess what? It turned out good.
Right, but it doesn't feel like he just phoned in what they wanted. He made a David Lynch film. It feels like his film.
Expression of his sensibility as you could possibly imagine.
Sure.
And I watched this again last night, and I was just like, every second while watching this movie, you imagine the million other versions of this movie that are all worse.
Yes,
and many of those
true.
versions would even still be good.
Or they would be serviceable Oscar films that were like well acted, and you'd be kind of like, yeah, that was
such
all right.
a kind of like magical, delicate, unsentimental, but deeply felt, perfectly constructed, but it's not overly precious. You know, it'd be so easy for this film to feel like this kind of like pastiche jewelry box, kind of ornate. Or maudlin, even just like the line I offensively reappropriated at the beginning of this episode.
You're right, like quote unquote maudlin moment.
And a moment that is parodied in a lot of other big things.
But it's also, that's like, that clip could be in an Oscars montage.
Of course.
And nobody would be like, wow, David Lynch made it.
But also, how does that play out in the actual movie? He is largely obstructed. Camera is placed behind the crowd. He is pinned against the wall.
We do.
In my cultural memory, I'm like,
he's yelling it right into the camera. 100.
But he doesn't.
I know
cut
that.
to a close up after the line is over.
I know. I had the exact same thought watching it. Right. It is interesting how it's like this. You know, behind everyone's backs. He's by the urinals.
Right.
You can barely see him.
You cut to a close up. You go in tight on John Hurt's eyes as he delivers that like primal scream. No one begrudges him. No one is like, that's cheap and manipulative. But the amount of self control to be like, no, this doesn't need any embellishment. This is emotionally affecting enough as it is. In fact, it is so painful, it is probably more affecting to pull away from it.
That's why it's a good decision.
Yeah, it's a magical movie, and it's magical the way it came together. It's very strange that this is his second movie. I mean, you watch this and you imagine, I saw Eraserhead at midnight.
Yeah.
But you just like, I don't know he had it in him. Like,
no.
Now
that is what's beautiful.
No one our age has ever watched this and been like, I didn't know he had it in him because we've seen his other movies. But you just watch this and think about this second. Well, after all, you're like,
this sort of limbs, the multiple people who had to go out on limbs and be like, I think he can make this.
And then he just did. Like, it's not, there's no magic to it.
He himself, I think, wouldn't have thought he could make this were people not to suggest it to him.
Look, we'll talk about all that. What's your relationship with this film? When did you first see it?
I think I saw it when I was in high school. I think I watched it like many movies I talk about on the show in my obsessive teenager, I need to watch 3 movies every night, not do homework period.
Great period for you.
It, probably watched at like 2 o'clock in the morning when I should have been sleeping, hoping my dad wasn't going to knock on my door and tell me to go to sleep, which makes this movie feel even more eerie.
Right.
Watching this movie on like standard def on VHS or DVD or TV or whatever it was the first times I watched this, in shittier transfers, there was a feeling of this actually feels like a movie from the 40s. It's not.
Sure.
But something about the degradation of it. I mean, I was watching it on my imported 4K now, and I'd never seen it look so pristine, which I don't say in a negative way. But I remember watching it and feeling like this feels like some bizarre time paradox object.
What about you, Alex?
I don't
remember. This is obviously a big pivotal movie for you.
Yeah, I don't remember when I first saw it, other than like a lot of things, as also discussed, Kubrick. Like, I think Blue Velvet was on the 98 AFI Top 100. So I probably saw that first.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was probably one of the next ones up, and this goes into one of my big, exciting, fun thoughts about Lynch. I would have just seen this because this was, let's say it's 1999 or let's say it's 2004.
Sure.
This is one of his only movies that you could just go rent.
That's true.
Right? Like, at that time, it's a high likelihood you're not finding Eraserhead at Blockbuster.
This was a big studio film that was available through all means, that Paramount distributed movies, and it was on circulation TV, whereas...
It was an Oscar film. It was a mainstream film that your parents would have seen, and unlike Blue Velvet, wouldn't think it is weird for a kid to watch.
Right. So much of the Lynch canon otherwise was treated like the Disney library, where it's like, it's available now for 3 weeks.
Well, this is one of the this was a lot easier to see.
Yeah.
Certainly. Yes. And obviously Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart were studio films as well, but like moving in, and this is something I've always found important about him, moving into the DVD era, right? So when, we all are, I'm obviously older than you guys a little bit, but like would have been trying to get your hands on movies.
Yes.
So let's say the dawn of the DVD era. Power of DVD is flying out of the screen at you. It's exploding out of the White House.
Possibilities are infinite.
With an alien spaceship.
Yeah.
You can't see Eraserhead. Right? Eraserhead is not on DVD.
No, it takes a while.
You can see this. You can see Wild at Heart and Blue Velvet. You can't see the pilot of Twin Peaks.
No.
You can't see any of it. There's the Twin Peaks VHS box set, but for years it wasn't available. And then the DVDs were out, and then they were out of print, and season 2 was not available.
Yes.
So Twin Peaks was like this weird thing where you could watch basically parts 2 through 8 and nothing else legally. Lost Highway was available in a terrible full screen broke ass transfer. So it was very unappealing. Very hard to access. And that was on tape too. Mulholland Drive was available in this weird DVD with no chapters.
Yes.
And then recently, for years, Inland Empire was out of circulation.
Right. Yeah.
And you look at like what makes a cult filmmaker a cult filmmaker. For 15 years, there was a hunt for his work.
Yeah, having it be a challenge makes it cool.
Which made this movie less cool.
Yes.
Because it was right there. But it also meant more people got to see it. But what makes a cult filmmaker significant is like Eraserhead, even until the 2000s, when, you guys know like the big goofy DVD box.
We talked about the big box.
Eraserhead 2000, much like Blues Brothers 2000. I'm sure same thing you said, but this is one of the funniest things ever that he
J. Evan Bonifant, of course, plays Buster Eraserhead.
Self-releases
Incredible, Paul.
an unwieldy, totally disgracefully designed box of one of the most important movies of all time.
And just then a little paper sleeve inside this oversized box.
And not even a paper sleeve. Like the DVD slides out of like this thick, like board game ass cardboard.
Right.
And he just slaps the numbers 2000 on it.
Right. And then he had the lime green box where it was like, here's a couple of his movies and some of the shorts and some special
the shorts
features.
were also in the box. So the two boxes were Eraserhead and 6 short films.
Right.
And then there was the Dumbland box.
But then what is included? The lime green box is a weird...
That's like after my DVD time. I don't care about the lime green box.
That's like... You're gonna go on the record and say you don't care about the lime green box?
Yeah. But he puts out Eraserhead, and it looked great. It was an incredible looking DVD, but it was just so annoying to have, and it didn't fit anywhere. And, we're talking like 20 years where this is one of the most important movies, and it was kind of hard to see unless an old beat up tape of it was at a store or you lived in a place where you'd see it at a revival.
Yes.
And it's very strange that his reputation, or it's not strange at all, it's the most obvious thing in the world, but it's strange that he's basically a mainstream artist, right? Like these are all... with the exception of Eraserhead, these are all studio or studio adjacent movies.
The lime green box was Eraserhead. Disc 2 is the soundtrack. Disc 3 is short films. Disc 4 is Elephant Man. Disc 5 is the Elephant Man Extras, which is mostly a documentary about the real John Merrick. Disc 6 is Blue Velvet. 7 is Wild at Heart. 8 is Industrial Symphony Volume 1.
Right.
9 is Dumbland. 10 is Mystery DVD, which is mostly just him talking straight to camera.
Yeah, this is some nonsense.
Right, and it was like a weird combination of stuff in one box that was in print for like 1 month on his website.
Yeah. So he had this weird relationship with access that clearly defines like the path of a cult filmmaker.
Yes.
Jodorowsky, El Topo, and Holy Mountain were
you have to go to a midnight showing or whatever.
Hard to see forever.
Right.
But the other thing about him is we're talking about is like, honestly, I know it's going to sound like a joke. Much like Kevin Smith,
no.
He is a craven capitalist
who
loves marketing his own goods to his own fans
and controlling his own sort
I honestly
of mythology.
think they were maybe the 2 first significant filmmakers to just have their own website with their own web store.
Yes. Yes, and like sell the products. I mean, you remember that era of the IFC where any movie you would go to see would have 20 minutes of pre-roll, not including trailers, including like short attention span theater and whatever. But I remember, and the heavy metal auteur.
Still show it.
Right. But I remember a period where I would see 3 different David Lynch pre-roll things where they would like advertise his DVDs on sale at the concession stands. They'd have an ad for his coffee line.
With the clip of him talking about it during some...
David Lynch Premium Select Coffee.
You don't have to remind me.
Right. It was like, this guy is like a fucking mogul.
No, to me, it's not mogul or craven capitalism. It's like more old-fashioned, like pre-cinema hucksterism, not in a bad
that.
way, but like this kind of like traveling salesman vibe of
But there's
like,
also control your own destiny. Like if you
yeah, kind of, except like a lot of his stuff he didn't control. And then he would do stuff like put out the Mulholland Drive DVD that I owned and watched endlessly that is like an insulting product.
Yes.
Like, and it's insane that was the way I consume my favorite movie. That's like in shitty shape.
Yes.
He's like, I don't like DVD chapters, so it has no DVD chapters, right? It's just like a bare bones. And like he blurred out some of the nudity because he like felt bad about that, which has like now been undone. You know,
Sure.
Shit like that where you're just like, what is this? This is the only way to watch this movie? And I don't know. Who's calling you?
Owen Klein is calling.
Owen Klein's calling.
Great
me for
Owen
some
Klein.
reason.
We loved his film Funny Pages.
Friend of the show.
Is he?
Friend
I
of
guess
Griffin's.
okay, you know
Lifelong
him. Right?
friend
Yes,
of
dear
Griffin.
friend of the
I've
show.
never met the guy.
Overdue. We got to have him on the podcast.
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
so
He's
it's the-
banned.
That is not nice.
I
We went to see Spawn together.
Seer of Spawn.
The infamous screen.
The
of
whole reason
Spawn.
David
That
wasn't
I wasn't
invited
invited to.
It's all because of the way I made these plans with Owen.
What do you mean?
Well, because what had happened with the Spawn screening
Mm-hmm.
is that I had said first, I said to Owen, let's go see Spawn.
Yeah.
And then at some point,
And
I was,
is it fair to say that you and Owen
We
have
need to
kind
talk
of
for the
Spawn
elephant.
violator vibes?
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Sure, why
Wait,
not?
Who's
You're
Spawn?
I guess I'm Spawn.
Yeah.
He's more clown, I guess. And then at some point,
Owen's Owen's
amidst
a
the
clown.
run of planning for this,
Yeah.
I just said, I wonder if Ben would be into Spawn. And then Owen said,
Wonder.
Oh,
How
and
dare
I wonder
you.
if Ben
That's
would
actually
be
an
into
insulting
going. I wonder if Ben would be into going to this screening of
Yeah,
Spawn.
that's still an insulting question.
And then Owen later was like, we should invite Griffin.
Yeah.
Griffin and I used to be all in on Spawn.
By the way, Ben, what is that on Alex's desk?
Do you notice there's
I do. There's a-
something wrapped?
This is like,
And then
Left
I'm
on
gonna
the
crack open
desk.
the dossier.
Yeah, no.
I'm very curious what's
Right.
in the dossier. Should we see what's in the dossier or what's in Ben's?
open
This
this
has kind of
first.
become a tradition. I just want to say that I get you a Christmas present, and usually you come on the show
Oh my God.
sometime
I see
months and months
I've
later.
opened up a corner. I see a flaming green N.
Could be anything.
Oh, man.
It could be anyone.
Could be Bridges of Madison County.
Oh, my God.
What do
No.
you have there?
This is a VHS of Todd McFarlane's Spawn 2 HBO home video.
The second volume of
with
the
a
animated
with
series.
a lenticular cover.
Let me
Yes.
see that cover. Yeah, look at that.
Okay, so we of course love the animated series. It was obviously a vulgar animated series, rated R with nudity. Nothing had ever been done like that before.
I'm getting huge Spawn vibes from that cover.
It was also one of the classic 90s, like, well, you know what the real best version
Yes.
of X comic book is the underseen animated
Yes,
series.
it came out like
right, versus
2
the
weeks
films.
after the movie or something.
Yeah.
Like they were in development at the same time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome, Alex.
So anyway, the reason that David wasn't invited to that screening is because
You don't like me.
I just invited Owen, and then later I invited Ben, and then Owen said, let's invite Griffin. And then it was all out of control.
In 1977, David Lynch released Eraserhead.
A 5-year project finally released out into the world.
A film you like?
I love Eraserhead.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's like one of the artistic miracles of the 70s.
I would agree.
I'm realizing this must have been the second Lynch film I had seen, Elephant Man, that I saw straight story in theaters. My parents took me to see it in the Angelica and had the,
Right.
it's so weird that he made this conversation. I was like,
Yes.
what do you mean? And then I watched his other most conventional movie
That
and
was
then
easiest
probably
to
watched
see.
Eraserhead after that. But a lot of my context for this movie was not really watching it through any understanding of who David Lynch was in a serious way. But anyway, 1977, he makes
the film is
Eraserhead, or
obviously
it's
on the
released.
midnight movie circuit. It has this slow but intense cult following that's building. Marty Michelson, a William Morris agent, is then interested, obviously, in doing more Lynch stuff and tries to get Ronnie Rocket made, which is
Alex is just looking at the Spawn cover and smiling.
Well, I want to hear this
Loving
context. I am listening.
Yeah.
There's a warning on the cover, though.
What does it say?
too cool.
Warning. Following program is recommended for mature audiences only. It contains adult situations, adult language, graphic violence, and nudity.
So don't show your daughter.
I would say that Spawn selling his soul to the devil to become an immortal warrior is an adult situation.
I would say
yes.
that is not a situation that children find themselves in often.
But then a violator like pooping through his pants or whatever is a little
for grown-ups.
Yeah, okay, fine.
And a childish situation.
Have you ever read Ronnie Rocket, the sort of fabled unproduced Lynch
No.
project?
I was doing a
I feel
little bit
the
of brush
script
up about it.
exists. Yeah.
I've never read those,
No,
I feel
I
like you guys
understand.
mention this sometimes. You're like, oh, the script for it's out there. I've read it. I'm like, who the fuck wants to do that?
I feel like I used to do it back in the day when I had less going on and I was a
Vincent
teenager.
Ward,
or
only
whatever.
3 scripts out there. You can read. I'm like, I don't want to read a fucking
Wooden
script.
Planet.
That's the kind of thing I would have bought at a comic convention in like 97, 8 or 9, and then poured over. But,
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit down and read Ronnie Rocket.
At one point, Lynch supposedly says he pitched Ronnie Rocket to like a major studio, and they were like, "What's it about?" And he was like, "It's about electricity and a 3-foot guy with red hair." And they were like, "Okay," and he never got a call back.
Get out of my office.
To be fair, he could, someone could say, "What's the Elephant Man about?" And he'd be like, "It's about smokestacks and hospital ethics." And they'd be like, "Okay, fine, please leave."
Christine McKenna says the details of the story are, it's like, one is about a detective who's going into the inner zone in pursuit of a villain who's hijacked electricity and reversed it so electricity makes darkness instead of light. The second storyline is about a 16-year-old boy who's kind of a Frankenstein monster.
This is Ronnie Rocket?
Yes, and the whole movie is kind of about the birth of rock and roll, and the boy becomes kind of like a rock star. Electricity is popping everywhere. And then apparently there's some peculiar sexual stuff and a dysfunctional family and some weird violence. It sounds like a David Lynch movie.
I would love to see him make it just because I want to see everyone get to make their megalopolis. But you also hear everything about it and you're like, it feels like the pieces of this ended up across his whole career.
He put it aside long ago.
Remember 15 years ago when Jonathan Coët was supposed to make it after Tarnation?
Right.
I do remember that, yes. What happened to Jonathan Coët?
He had some bad health problems
really
recently, and there was like huge GoFundMe.
I donated to the GoFundMe.
But he was, because there's like a Blue Velvet riff in Tarnation, and then it was like, oh, he might make Ronnie Rocket. It was Ronnie Rocket. After watching this movie, I was like, Lynch must have a great Wikipedia page, like a John Carpenter of unmade projects, 40 movies deep. No, he doesn't seem to have. This is kind of the only unmade thing that's like, yeah, that's his unmade movie that was kind of like softly announced or something.
There was some interview recently where he mentioned that he had written an animated film years ago and had polished it off and was trying to send it around. And then I talked to a major, I will keep this anonymous.
Talk to someone.
But I talked to people at one of the major American animation studios who were like, we have the script, we're considering it.
Sure.
I don't even know if he'd direct it. And they were like, it is very much a like straightforward, well-written animated film. It is not a deeply bizarre thing.
It's kind of, it's like about what if there was this spy and he like turned into a pigeon, midway through his spy
that's the most
adventures.
fucked up premise I've ever heard. That's some Lynchian nightmare shit.
David Lynch. I watched Tarnation with my entire family because like my aunt rented it like one Thanksgiving or something. And I remember 10 minutes into the movie, age 17, was like, oh, this film's not going to go over with anyone but me and this family. Like, this is an incredibly difficult to watch abstract documentary about a person's horrible
I saw that movie like 4 times in theaters.
That's way too many times to see that movie, Griffin.
But I also was just like, is this like the first time I've seen someone actually possibly create a new language in cinema, which felt very exciting. And it's like ended up being a bit of a dead end.
It's sort of a footnote or whatever.
Which is fascinating.
It's an interesting film if anyone ever, comes around to it.
What movie?
Tarnation.
Oh, we're still talking about Coët.
No, we're going to move on. So,
it's
Stuart Cornfield,
good movie.
Who is a producer that's interested in Lynch and says he's a fucking genius. He'd worked at, he'd come up at the AFI around the same time as Lynch in the producer
figure
program.
Who ties a lot of things together. He also came up the same time as Martin Brest, our buddy Marty Brest, and another person who is attending AFI at the same time is Anne Bancroft. Obviously, incredibly established, Academy Award-winning actress at this point, but wants to direct, makes the film that later she adapts into the feature Fatso, starring Dom DeLuise. But Cornfield, friends with Marty Brest, meets Anne Bancroft, which connects him to, of course, Mel Brooks,
who is Anne Bancroft's husband.
And all of this is happening a little after David Lynch's time there, but I think Lynch is looming as a recent AFI alumni.
So,
are you covering the short films?
Yeah, on Patreon.
Yep.
So
they're good, right, Ben?
Yes.
Good Ben vibes.
I've never seen any of them.
Oh, you haven't done them yet?
Yeah.
No, we haven't done them.
So,
and the albums?
Cornfield.
Crazy Clown Time on Patreon.
And the coffee.
Cornfield talks to. I'm now doing like what my wife does in high school. I think where I'm just going to go quiet until everyone is silent. Cornfield talks to Lynch and says, "You're a genius, but you really just need to make a movie," which I think is obviously usually good advice, right? You don't want to be like the guy hasn't made movies.
Eraserhead is fresh. It's not like he hasn't done anything for 10 years.
You're right. Also, it was a 5-year birthing process.
Sure,
you could see Cornfield being like, you can't just go back into another thing. It's going to take 5 years to come out.
That's the thing. I think Lynch is also like, what do you think of this Ronnie Rocket? And he's like, I think this is very interesting. I don't think you're going to be able to make this right away. Like, you need to just make a movie.
Right.
And so they set aside that, and then now to switch over to Elephant Man, Once there was an Elephant Man. So that's the origin of this story.
The Elephant Man.
Yes.
John Merrick.
Yes, that's Joseph Merrick. But you can
Why did they change his name? In the movie, they call him John Merrick.
Yeah. He's John in the movie.
They refer to him as John in the movie, and I'm not sure why.
So on the special feature, there's
But the real guy, Joseph. Joey Jojo.
There's a little special feature on the Criterion.
You called him Joey Jojo?
Keep going.
Apparently, when Treves wrote his
Trees? Frederick Treves.
When he wrote his monograph on Merrick, he just wrote. They have a picture of it in the special feature. He wrote Joseph, crossed it out, and wrote John.
Interesting.
And and according to the historian on the special feature, it says no one knows why he did this.
Okay.
Maybe it was a goof?
No, because you see it crossed off, and he says, it may have been done to afford him a bit of anonymity, a bit of modest. This is just historian on the
right. Yeah, sure.
Bald guy with a British accent.
It's like a sort of a L. Simpson, Lisa S.
situation.
Like
so he basically just says when Treves wrote his monograph on him, he just changed it.
Treves, to be clear, the doctor who treated Mr. Merrick and is played by Anthony Hopkins in the film.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. Like it says on Wikipedia, Treves changed it. He was Joseph. Everyone knew that. And then when he wrote his book that the movie is largely sourced from, he just said, "What if it was John?" So
Christopher DeVore and Eric Berggren, write this screenplay, largely drawn from that, a little bit drawn from this book, The Elephant Man: A Study in Human Dignity as well.
This is happening
which came later.
Simultaneously with the play being written, which has no relation to this movie.
Right. In the play, the way you play the Elephant Man is you're Bradley Cooper and you go, "Arr."
One of the funniest pictures.
Wasn't the play originated on Broadway by Mark Hamill?
He was in it. I don't think
he was the
originated
star replacement.
It. Right. I think he was one of the people who has gone
but it
was
a big, I'm not just Luke Skywalker, watch me play the Elephant Man.
There is no way to discuss what these actors do on stage.
Ben, you've seen the pictures of Bradley Cooper and even, I believe, David Bowie. You've seen
David
the pictures,
Bowie's another one who did it.
Have you seen the pictures?
I've at least seen Bradley Cooper.
Have you seen
when people do the play, they don't wear makeup, they don't do a costume.
It's all
physical contortion.
Stagecraft.
But they also they slant one shoulder and they might hold a little cane.
Right. Yes.
And they make a face that says, "I have a deformed skull."
Yes.
I think Philip Anglim was the original John Merrick.
Okay.
On stage, but David Bowie did it. Bruce Davison did it. Later, Oscar-nominated character actor himself,
Senator Kelly,
and then Mark Hamill did it in his. Yes, he is Senator Kelly in the
X-Men
movies.
A squishy senator.
Mark Hamill did it as his Broadway debut in 1981. So that's between Empire and Jedi.
Yep.
And it's just funny to think about that because it's this hit. Yes. That's simultaneous, parallel. They don't have anything to do with each other. They're just about the same thing.
You always are like, growing up, you're just like, I'm sure, it's an adaptation of the play.
Right. Yeah, but I don't think anyone says I am not an animal in the play, right? I don't know. But I'll admit I've never seen it.
Two works created entirely separately, simultaneously, and then this movie fascinatingly has a postscript saying this had nothing to do with the play after the fact.
Hadn't the book, The Study in Human Dignity, hadn't that was recent-ish?
Very recent.
For both.
Yes, and I think both are drawing from it a little bit. Have you seen the interview where Bradley Cooper is trying to talk to Jimmy Fallon about playing the Elephant Man and they cannot stop laughing for like 10 minutes? It's very funny.
I don't watch
Wait
Fallon
a minute.
Sure.
He can't stop laughing?
Both of them are clear. They get into this Google thing. Yes, well, Fallon, obviously. Like where...
Old Stoneface?
Cooper... the Calvin Coolidge of late night. Jimmy Fallon.
Cooper broke him?
No, it's more like Fallon breaks Cooper. Like Cooper keeps trying to be like,
that's how
but
powerful
obviously
Fallon
he had this physical deformity, and then like he just clearly is like looking at Fallon's face and can't stop laughing because he's trying to be serious, and it's a silly
I
situation.
should send Fallon to Buckingham Palace. He'd be cracking those guys up.
Those soldiers?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Can you picture Fallon goofing with Merrick? Have Merrick sit there on the couch?
Could you imagine Merrick slow jamming the news?
That was like, I was trying to think of what you just did.
Baby
to be like,
when he comes out.
Let me reference a Fallon bit. And then I was just like, I don't really, what are his bits again? They slow jamming the news. I do remember that.
They play kids' instruments.
They make it like beer pong or something.
Yeah, right.
It's
wheel
so
of
weird
musical impressions that are really random and unplanned.
There's like, it's just 1 year where people are like, this man has reinvented late night.
Yes.
And then a year later, it was like, I cannot stand the sight of him.
Yes.
Was the universal opinion both sides. Anyway, he's still going.
Still
Jimmy
going.
Fallon
We'll
hosts
never
the
stop.
Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And
So
he's, I heard, a really cool boss.
yeah. Okay. So
Who's chill.
So Jonathan Sanger, who's one of the producers of this film, along with Mel Brooks, is working as, I think, an assistant director on High Anxiety. And his babysitter is like, my boyfriend wrote a script. Do you want to read it? Gives him The Elephant Man.
And he's like, your fucking boyfriend wrote this? This shit's unbelievable.
He's impressed with the script. Apparently it was 200 pages, which seems almost surprising because this film is 2 hours long.
Yeah, every scene is
it's not dialogue heavy at all.
45 seconds long,
right?
Almost.
Yeah, and like it's a lot of, which I love about it. Quiet, silent.
You could imagine even a good version of the script, the overwritten version, that Lynch would come in and just simplify.
You suspect this was his contribution, which I was not able to find anything about what he actually did, other than probably adding all the stuff about in the industrial age.
Right. I mean, that does feel like his addition. But so both Sanger and Kornfeld, who are both like sort of circling this, love the idea of Lynch for this movie. But it's getting shopped all around town. The play is kind of messing with the possible rights of it because the people who are putting on the play are like, we own the title The Elephant Man, which seems sort of specious to me, but I believe there was legal. And so they turned to Mel Brooks. And Brooks found the script to be fascinating, and he said, let's do this, which I think surprised everybody because, of course,
Racerhead, which most people, I think,
we're
studio
getting to
execs.
that. We're getting to that.
I'm
just saying, like, that Brooks even wants to make a drama is interesting. Mel Brooks makes funny films.
Well, he had already started Brooks Films to produce Fatso. His company,
I have not seen, but it's funny, right? Yeah, it's a sadly funny, right? Yes.
But it's more James L. than Mel in comedic sensibility, perhaps. I've also been meaning to see it, but
I love Dom DeLuise.
Oh, who doesn't?
Exactly. Do you like Dom?
I don't know.
Wow. You don't? I mean, you're out on Dom?
If I said yes, what would I be saying that I like?
Fievel?
Floppy hats?
Well, I mean, I like American Tail. I don't know if I would say as a kid what I like about this is the voice work of Dom DeLuise.
Horse laughing.
I can't do it.
Is he just?
I feel like he had the HOARSE.
I was like imagining he made a horse laugh.
He was so funny that he made a horse laugh once.
He did. He definitely.
And I sign on.
Yeah.
So right. Everyone's in.
But what was the name of his usual production company? It wasn't called Arrowhead, Mountainhead, something.
Oh, I don't know.
He had his name for his own films. He started Brooks Film to be like, I want to be able to produce movies to help people that aren't my sensibility.
Yeah, right.
So he'd already created this label that was sort of just like, I have other aspirations. And he had talked about this, like, I've heard him say this in interviews where he's like, I think there are a lot of other films I could have made as a director, but I accepted at a certain point that my name was too synonymous with the sensibility and people wouldn't expect certain things from me.
Crossbow Productions.
Thank you. I liked the idea of helping some of these films into existence.
So Mel Brooks is like, who is David Lynch? He actually wants Alan Parker, who had recently made Bugsy Malone.
Makes a ton of sense.
It makes some sense. Alan Parker's just going to be always, I mean, obviously he made The Wall, right? Yes. I feel like that's what probably is like the coolest thing he had done.
Would have been a logical other person on the list to be like, yeah, this is an old kind of...
Oh, no, you know what? The Wall's after this.
Midnight Express is what he's really coming off of. This is that era.
Yes, that's 78. Obviously, there's...
John Hurt film.
Yeah, that's true. Bugsy Malone, like I said. Like, I don't know. He's made movies I liked. He makes stylish movies. I mean, he's not... I think Alan Parker's dead, right?
I think he died a few years
fairly
ago.
Recently. But 2020.
Midnight Express was like a phenomenon. That's one of those movies where when you watch like sitcoms from that era.
Yes, it made Turkish Prison the thing you don't want to be in every sitcom. Yes.
Everyone's citing it all the time.
I always got it confused with Midnight Run.
I did too.
Very different movies.
My brain couldn't separate that these movies were different.
Very different movies.
Oh, I later learned that. But they weren't.
The hard way?
Yeah, well, it was like when I thought I was renting Midnight Cowboy, and I actually rented Urban Cowboy.
Very different movie.
And I was like, this is one of the greatest films of all time. Like, this movie is awful.
Yeah, Urban Cowboy isn't great.
And I realized I rented the wrong movie.
Right.
Great things like that used to happen.
I mean, what's the Matt Dillon movie?
Drugstore Cowboy.
Thank you. Right. I was like, there's 3 cowboy movies, and I too would mess them all. All right. So Kornfeld is the one who's like, it's got to be fucking David Lynch.
Yeah.
And so Brooks is like, fine,
Like,
I'll meet the guy.
This was a religious experience for me. It was the greatest film I'd ever seen. I was committed to getting this guy.
Right. They meet at Bob's Big
New
Boy,
movies.
a very Lynchy place to meet.
It was the only place he ate for years.
Right. Brooks found him very polite, thought he looked like Charles Lindbergh because he was wearing an aviator's jacket. And they talked about sort of the outsider aspect of the story, and that's how it was appealing. And Lynch said, I think this is a heartwarming story, and Brooks liked that. And so then he goes to see Eraserhead. And I think Kornfeld is like pacing like crazy, being like, well, this is going to make Mel fire Lynch. Like, be like, no, fuck, what? This guy? Are you crazy? And instead, the doors fly open. I mean, the funny thing that Kornfeld says is like, people are coming out, right? Jonathan comes out, so that's, one of the other producers, and has what he says is an O.J. Simpson juror expression. I'm not sure what that means exactly. Stoneface?
Comes out and says, like, he's clearly guilty.
He just couldn't read it.
This guy is guilty of making a great cult film.
Guilty of a masterpiece.
The doors fly open and Mel runs out with his arms outstretched and embraces Kornfeld and Lynch and says, "You're a madman. I love you. You're in." The best film I've ever seen about what it's like to have kids.
I've heard him talk in interviews about seeing this movie, and everyone else was like, what a insane object from Planet Nutball. And that Mel watched it for the first time and was like, there's clearly a real filmmaker here. This isn't just random shit happening. The like invisible craft of this movie is so incredibly strong. This guy isn't just some like outre artist who stumbled on some provocative images.
Paramount agrees to distribute the film after it moves around for a while. NBC puts up $4 million, I guess, in a deal that sort of had Brooks agreeing to do some TV stuff for them.
Yeah, well, Kornfeld was like, I've tried pitching this with Lynch and it wasn't going anywhere. And Mel was like, they said no to you. They're not going to say no to me.
Right.
Mel Brooks was really good at using his celebrity as capital to get these movies made. And yeah, it's just like to go into the offices of NBC, pre-sell the TV rights for this movie, get him to put up a chunk of the budget and be like, I'll make like 7 TV appearances for next year. Right. That's so worth it to them.
Other than The Fly, what else does Brooks' film do that he doesn't want credit for?
Francis, which was like another kind of serious biographical, thing that got Oscar attention with Jessica Lange.
My favorite year is obviously more his.
That's a fun movie
type of thing.
But yeah, that was an Oscar-nominated movie.
It does start to fall apart. I mean,
84
it's like
Charing Cross Road, which is like a dramedy.
Elephant Man. Then obviously he's doing his own movies within there. My favorite year is his kind of thing. Francis, To Be or Not to Be, The Doctor and the Devils, The Fly, Solar Babies. And then it's basically back to Save for the Fly 2, his movies.
You're forgetting The Vagrant. The Bill Paxton horror film.
Wild.
Have you ever seen that? That feels like a Kim's Video
I don't
classic.
know what The Vagrant is. Doctor and the Devils, though, that's Freddie Francis, who shot this movie.
Yeah. But so, yeah, it's like 84 Charing Cross Road, which is like, that's an Anne Bancroft movie. Like, so like he would obviously, if she wanted to make something serious, you know, but obviously, of course, famously, he takes his name off this movie basically as much as he can so that people do not think Mel Brooks presents The Elephant Man. They think they're going in for a laugh riot about like a guy who never forgets. And what else do elephants say?
Eats a lot of peanuts.
Yeah.
right.
Well,
He's a peanut
cats.
Right. They see a mouse and they go, ah!
He cost himself an Oscar nomination, right?
What
for
a
the
jerk.
good of the film.
Yes, because he is an uncredited producer. It's just Jonathan Sanger who's
I just think it's incredibly cool. And I just love that like this and The Fly are basically the same narrative of he and Kornfeld finding these incredibly interesting filmmakers and being like, if you match that guy with that material, they can make a studio picture that works. And like completely protected them and insulated them. And they made these incredible fucking movies.
About sad monsters who are shunned.
Yeah. And movies that no one else would have gotten made those ways.
The sort of, I never thought this about this movie before, but like, so everything in the narrative you're describing, which is now the way most things work. Like, oh, you made this weirdo movie. We're going to throw you into the deep end.
Right.
Typically now,
but that's actually not how it was done back then, is what you're saying.
No, it would have been much less common.
Right.
Kind of like, is other than somebody having the improbable foresight to be like, I think the guy who made Meet the Feebles should make 3 $100 million movies.
Right. If there was
and then they'll
nothing,
probably be the 3 greatest, franchise
franchise genre films.
If there was nothing in between, if Meet the Feebles were his first film and then he went straight to Lord of the Rings.
I mean, it's closer to that. Like this is more like that than most other things where it's like, okay, the Frighteners exist, but it's
and Heavenly Creatures, an Oscar nominee.
Yeah, but like that, you don't see Lord of the Rings and Heavenly Creatures.
I would argue you do, and we will talk about it when we do Peter Jackson. But obviously, yes, it was an insane risk to take at the time. It didn't make any sense.
This just feels like.
But this is a smaller thing. Like the Elephant Man is not the Lord of the Rings. Like this is a
somebody was just like, I really think this person's going to make the best version of this.
Yes, but it's also it is such a serious-minded movie that even if the risk is not super high in terms of like cost, it does feel like the kind of thing where handing this over to Lynch to a lot of people would seem like, if this goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong. The movie's embarrassing. He delivers something incoherent. It's up its own ass.
Why did we hire the weirdo guy to do this? What idiots we were.
Weirdo guy who lives at a Bob's Big Boy.
Right. But
has anyone committed to the bit harder than Lynch over their life?
He commits to every bit like as hard as possible and then drops it well as well.
The Woody Woodpecker doll thing that gets recirculated like once a year. Do you know this, Ben?
No.
He was like, I was at a gas station. There's a photo of him on a couch surrounded by like 8 identical Woody Woodpecker stuffed animals. And they were like, what are these? And he's like, these were my sons. I loved them with my whole heart. I was at a gas station. I saw them sitting there, pegged in the window, and I said, I need to free them. They belong to me. I must adopt them. And I carried them with me everywhere. They were like my life, my love. And then we're like, what happened to them? And it was like, things didn't end well with them. After a couple of years, I got bad vibes and I had to give them away. He just tells this story very straight. And you're just like...
He commits.
What is going on here? Yeah.
I love it, though. Wait, I'm obsessed. You're absolutely right. He commits to the bit.
Yeah.
So hard. Even down to just he dresses so like... the same, and he's always kind of had the same style.
Have you seen the red carpet video of Ebert talking to him at the Mulholland Drive Oscars?
No, I'm sorry. I need to read the Woody Woodpecker thing directly. It's 2 sentences, but it's so much better than I paraphrased
1/10 as long as Griffin's version of it.
Yes.
But it's also exactly the same. But let's hear it again.
He rescued 5 Woody Woodpecker dolls from a petrol station in 1981. So this is post-Elephant Man.
You just added a sentence.
I'm sorry. I screech on the brakes, I do a U-turn, go back and I buy them and I save their lives. I name them Chucko, Buster, Pete, Bob, and Dan. And they were my boys and they were in my office. They were my dear friends for a while, but certain traits started coming out and they became not so nice. Then looking straight ahead, he added with a grim finality, they are not in my life anymore.
So what he means is like, we redecorated and whatever one of my wives at the time said, can you please get rid of these stupid toys?
Yes.
And she threw them out and I have to come up with some joke answer for what happened to them.
But there were like 10 photos of him with them at different points in his life. Yes.
So none of you have seen the Mulholland Drive Oscars thing?
No.
It's amazing. So it's Ebert doing like, Ebert's on the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks up and he's like, David, when I saw this movie at Cannes, I asked you what it meant. And he walks up and he's like, hello, Roger. He's like, I asked you what it meant. And you said, if the movie's nominated for an Oscar, I'll tell you. So, David, what does the movie mean?
Nominated for 1 Oscar. Right.
And Lynch just looks at him and he's like, always nice to see you, Roger.
I have seen that. It is funny.
Away.
I mean, this is only 1 movie removed from... no, it's 2 movies removed from Lost Highway. You know, the 2 thumbs down, 2 great reasons to see. But
it seems like there's a lot of respect between them.
No, I think, yeah.
It's just, hello, Roger. It's a very Hello Newman like line reading.
Mel Brooks wants to cast Dustin Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
He is convinced away from doing this with this sort of iconic line. We're always going to be looking to see where the Elephant Man ends and Dustin Hoffman begins.
Would have been awful.
It would have been
of course.
nightmare.
He would have been so over the top.
Yes.
Lynch wants to cast Jack Nance, which makes sense. It was the one guy who had been in a movie he directed.
This is the only movie in Jack Nance's lifetime that Lynch made that he was not in.
Right. But then he does see the very, very, very famous in Britain miniseries, The Naked Civil Servant, which is sort of like an early launchpad for John Hurt, and was incredibly impressed by it. Funny to think about Lynch like taking in a clever British miniseries. Like, it's just so... That's
He's
the
someone
thing
who
you can't recognize. I'm like, no, that guy
funny.
just sands furniture, and then you're like, no, someone sent him a DVD and he watched it. Like, I know it's the 70s, so they sent him something else, but right? Like,
yes, yeah.
He's more. I mean, there's a Vulture interview from a few years ago that I reread, where someone was like, "Oh yeah, do you watch?" He's like, "I watched a lot of true crime. It's fascinating what these people do to each other out in the world."
I mean, he's not wrong.
He just sits there. He's like, "Okay, I'm done. With my woodworking, my painting,
my crazy clown.
Time is over for the day. Right. It's time for some crazy Netflix true crime time." He just sits there and watches this dog shit.
The real crazy clown time.
Like, look at that! Yeah. They killed another lady. He seems to just. I mean, he's totally normal, despite what he would have you think.
Well, but that's the magic of him.
He's always like, "I am normal." Like he is the one being like, "No, like I am normal."
The more normal the thing is he does, the weirder it then becomes.
You sick fuck.
I brush my teeth every morning. And you're like, who the fuck is this guy?
Methodical madness from David Lynch. John Hurt is, of course,
one of the finest actors ever.
He's a wonderful actor. He's nominated for Midnight Express. Speaking of Midnight Express, at the 1979 Oscars. He's busy shooting Heaven's Gate, which is taking so fucking long that he made this movie in between like bits of Heaven's Gate.
Wow.
This
in
whole ass movie where he's covered in makeup. It's not like he does like 3 scenes in this thing. He's wonderful. Lynch says, I don't know anyone better. Like, I wanted him because he's a real actor and he got right into the role. But he just, I think, really loves the guy as a guy, too.
Brooks and Cornfeld Wisely were like, beyond just, is this performance out of Jack Nance's ability? It's also like, we need to push him a little bit outside of his comfort zone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, give him someone who will
work with
challenge
someone
him.
different.
Right.
Where does Hopkins come? I mean,
so the original choice to play Frederick Treves, is that his name? Treves. Is Alan Bates, who's a wonderful actor.
Can wear a beard nicely.
Absolutely, and be English, and honestly, I do think I love Alan Bates, and he can be like very compassionate. Like he's a little earthier than some of these guys. Hopkins comes in late, apparently, and they didn't get along.
It's the one guy he clashed with.
Yes, I think Hopkins, who there's lots of stories about him being a pretty tricky customer, like throughout his career.
Yeah.
Like now he posts videos of listening to jazz and he's 90 years old and you love the guy. But like, I think
him and Lynch's online personas have really met in the middle.
They're coming together. You're right.
Befuddled old men sitting in their house playing with their webcam.
But I think
and Hopkins has said
Hopkins is the one who's like, I was rude to him because I was like, who the fuck is this guy? He's made one movie.
10 years ago, I rewatched and thought it was a masterpiece and I sent him a letter. But yeah, he was just like, this guy doesn't seem like a director.
Right.
He doesn't seem like anyone I've worked with before.
He
doesn't have the
been
credits.
strange.
Yes.
Like, how old is Lynch when he makes this film? This
Great
is 19, like he's probably, let's say he's making 79. He's like 32. Like he's this like young American guy with this like sort of twangy accent. He's making this Tony British movie.
A guy with real...
He couldn't have been 32, right?
He was born in 46. How old is he?
He was 33?
Right,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this movie's old.
Right. I guess I just thought that by the time Eraserhead was finished, he was older.
But he wasn't really. And like, he kind of got to making movies fairly quick in a way. Yeah. Like he goes through AFI and stuff and takes him a while. But apparently, Hopkins was the one who would fight him, be like, my character wouldn't do that or whatever.
Which Lynch said, like, codified for him, I am never making a movie where I don't originate the characters again because I don't ever want to be in a situation where an actor tells me my character wouldn't do that.
Right. I want to be able to be like, no, I know what the character does. Do what I say. Right. Yes. I think Hopkins is incredible in this movie.
He is so good in it.
Like, and he is, do you?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, like
there's nothing not amazing about this movie.
This movie's perfect.
I mean, I basically agree.
But it's also like,
I'm less passionate about this film than you two guys, but I also have no fault with it.
It was confusing. It was always confusing to realize, that's Anthony Hopkins like a long time before Hannibal Lecter.
I remember...
You don't think of him as existing prior to that if you're a kid.
I remember a friend of mine watching this in high school and saying, like, it genuinely looks like it's from the 40s. And I was like, they did a good job approximating it. And they were like, the fact that Anthony Hopkins is in it breaks my brain a little bit. Because to like this friend of mine, they're just like, they don't know who Anne Bancroft is. John Hurt's caked under makeup.
Right.
This is the only modern recognizable actor in the movie. Even though he's much younger, it is undeniably Anthony Hopkins.
Is there any way you would know it was John Hurt if you weren't told? Like, no right? Like the voice and the face.
The most recognizable.
I find him very recognizable.
Well, he
More
is because
old man
no one's
John
ever
Hurt.
looked like him.
But and even he has incredibly distinctive eyes, but
Yes.
I don't think those eyes are even directly
No.
recognizable within that makeup. It is such a fully transformative performance, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but like it is a performance that really makes me think about like what is acting. Because on paper,
Right.
it defies logic that as much of what he's doing comes across.
Right.
This is a classic
Is it
art-
just the makeup is so impressive and you're kind of
Right.
being taken in by that?
Right.
Sure.
It is a character. It is a man who lives within a set of extreme restrictions. And by the nature of the movie, they're imposing similar restrictions upon the actor that are in theory just masking and like burying anything he's trying to do. And his voice is obstructed and his face is obstructed. He has this makeup that's not only so comprehensive, but is on purpose immovable. Like it does not have flexibility. And there's so many scenes where he doesn't speak. There's so many scenes where he is wearing a bag on top of makeup on top of his head.
Cool look.
There is
The
like
bag is a cool look.
energy coming off of him in every single shot that is so palpable and real and deeply felt.
it's very like you think of these physical performances
Yeah.
that someone could give within a bag.
Yes.
And his body, he created a body language that the body language is heartbreaking.
Yes.
He created a voice that, despite David's attempts to clown on it, which are insensitive at best.
I really don't
and hateful
appreciate
at
how
worst,
David started this episode. Yeah.
the voice is heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
And
It is such. There was so much effort behind the voice.
That's why it's heartbreaking.
The first
He's
scene
working
he
so
tries
hard
to
to
talk,
talk.
you're
Right.
sitting there and you're going, I can't make it through this movie. This is going to be too painful to watch this guy try to communicate for 2 hours.
but he does this thing that like sort of is like what's magic about something like My Left Foot, although that's much more showy.
yes.
Obviously, is like he does so much with the one hand he
Yes.
has that I think like the key to what's transcendent is the moments where you see him straightening his garments on the back of the hook with his good hand, or at the very end of the movie where he brushes off his sheets before laying down with his good hand.
Yeah.
He realizes like I basically have one appendage
Yeah.
to sell to people like the full physicality of what I can bring to this, and he overdoes it with the hands so much that you're like, this is a full performance. Like
Yeah.
he's doing everything, and I'm really only, and then the eye, which you really only see one of.
Yes.
The scene where the goons storm in and overtake him, he
Yeah.
plays the entire scene with his eyes closed.
Yes.
Which is understandable. He's being attacked.
But he's
you're like,
taking out of the equation his
Yeah.
one quality, his one physical attribute that is actually nakedly visible to the audience.
but it's so visible that it's shut
yes.
that you're reading so much more into the performance with just an eye.
Yeah.
And
it is an astonishing performance.
he's calibrated every choice to within like the 5 tools he has.
Right. And the
Yes.
very nature of like, does it matter who's underneath the Elephant Man suit? You're barely going to understand what he's saying, and he's caked under makeup.
Yeah,
How would the performance register?
Like Hoffman would have been bad at it. Hoffman wouldn't have
Exactly.
found
Hoffman is the perfect example of someone who'd be bad at it.
and the argument, by the way,
which is
for,
also
like,
sounds like a critic joke.
the
Like,
argument for
the
what
critic-
he's doing in the performance is basically like the story the movie is trying to tell about the man,
Right.
of like slowly forcing yourself to engage with the spirit of the person underneath this thing.
Can you imagine what Circus would do with this in mocap? The mind reels.
I mean, I just like to imagine what like Bradley Cooper would do with this, like making a face. That's the thing I want to see, like some kind of a face.
Yeah.
You guys,
David's
see what I'm
doing the
there?
face.
Yeah.
Freddie Jones, who I also think is very good in this film, and then is later in Dune, as the initial minder, the
Yeah.
He runs the sideshow. or
yes,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
The guy
He's the
runs the
exploiter.
sideshow.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to do the movie because he's like, I think this is too one note. This character is just like the person who is mean to the Elephant Man.
And Lynch says, you're right.
Right. Lynch is like, yeah, we should deepen him a little bit. We should like get a little more like he does have some like limited patronizing affection for this
Yeah.
person. Like it's not particularly positive, but they incorporate that, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
John Gielgud, Lynch says, the guy's a saint.
Father of Toby Jones, by the way.
Is that right? Is that Freddie Jones?
Yes.
Yeah. The Brits, they're always making actors. Making actors.
Actors be making actors.
Him and the the coal shoveler guy who brings the people around
Yes.
Yeah.
to Merrick's room. I mean, as we discussed with Clockwork Orange, like in my mind, just growing up, I was like, all British men must be like this. They're just like these sniveling, cockney, drunken.
Well, and you met David and you went, I guess I was right.
There's two kinds. There's the John Gielgud type who's like, hello, I'm always in a tuxedo and I know the Queen, right? And then there's the guy's like, oh, governor, yeah, I eat rocks for breakfast.
He's a talking piece of coal.
Right. Yeah. Salt is disgusting to me, too spicy. I just like the footy in Bovril.
I just always think of the SNL, the British toothpaste commercial, where's the toothpaste with sugar. To get British people to want to brush their teeth for the first time. And they cut to a close-up of Chris Farley with giant mutton chops and the worst Austin Powers teeth. And everyone's singing the praises of this toothbrush. And that just cuts to Farley and goes, and it tastes great on a cracker. And he squeezes the toothpaste onto a cracker.
I also remember this, yes.
Yeah, one of the funniest things ever.
Lynch, I think, very impressed with Gielgud. He liked that he had custom-made cigarettes and custom-made oval boxes. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, David Lynch loves cigarettes, so he was probably like, check out John Gielgud's cigarette game.
Yeah. He's excellent in this film. I mean, everyone's excellent in this film. Dexter Fletcher?
Yeah, baby.
Is Freddie Jones' little...
he bites his boy.
Bites his boy.
What did Anna say at the end? She goes, Dexter Fletcher from Lock, Stock?
Yeah. She's not wrong. He's the star of Lock, Stock.
I said I couldn't have pulled that out, but yeah, he's currently, director, Rocket Man.
I was trying to what's his character's name in Lock, Stock? Does anyone know?
Anna Wood. She loves that movie like she was a teenage boy in England.
in England, as I was. Soap. He's called Soap.
Hey, no.
My friend was going to see Lock, Stock, who's younger than me. My coworker,
is his name Soap because he's filthy?
Probably. It's fucking Soap. It was going to see Lock, Stock, and I was trying to explain to her, like, before she saw it, I was like, you have to understand this was cool.
Yeah.
It might not seem cool now. I have no idea how that movie goes over with context.
The slang glossary.
But you have to understand it was like no one had done this for 20 years and it was like it's cool again to have like Cockney gangsters wearing like big coats.
Pork type hat, lovely jubblies. What's your fucking line?
Dexter, he's a great looking boy, and I mean, he's like well,
he was a good
urchin.
kid actor.
Yeah, he's a great little urchin.
It's just wild to think about him getting to be on this set when he was like 9.
And it said on Wikipedia, this might be not fact checkable, that he was like he would have been Ronnie Rocket.
Correct.
Yeah,
he was definitely part of one version of Ronnie Rocket that was once put together vaguely.
Just
because Lynch had worked with him.
An amazing film school to get to experience as a boy, and you see the fingerprints of that experience all over Ghosted.
Right. And apparently,
Thank you, Alex.
It's indescribable how proud of himself Griffin looks right now.
He loves to mention Ghosted, a film I watched in my brain like put like a sort of black hole warp around, like that it like actually wouldn't enter. You. Right, exactly.
The whole cast in this is incredible.
Yes.
Anne Bancroft is like
she's
an
wonderful.
Astonishing 2 scenes.
Yes.
Kenny
was
Baker,
she Oscar nominated?
She was not. She should have been.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Kenny
It's
Baker,
maybe a little too small of a performance.
Yeah. Kenny Baker. It's really nice.
Very
Kenny
happy
Baker.
to see him when he shows up.
Ben, the little person who is the one who like leads freeing Merrick.
He's dressed
from
like a magician.
The cage
big
the
goofy
end,
hat, feather in it.
Is R2D2.
That's R2D2.
Oh wow,
he's in Time Bandits too, right?
Yeah.
He had a lot of live action roles.
Now we gave him question marks on every single performance review of our Star Wars.
And Anthony
miniseries.
Daniels was always very catty when he was alive, where he's like, "I'm an actor."
He's in a fucking bin. Like, what does this guy do?
But he's like,
he's great in this.
There's 1,000 lines in this movie that are heartbreaking. But when he's like, "Good luck," who needs it more than us? More than we? Right? It's just that's an incredible line.
And just the look he gives him when he like comes up to the cage and he's like, "We're gonna get you out of here."
Yeah,
is just immediately devastating.
He has a great face. That guy has a great face.
Everyone in this movie acts so sad. It's really an incredible feat for someone who'd not worked with professional actors.
It's just the word I keep coming back to. It is such a wildly unsentimental film for a movie being so deep with feeling.
But he's very, I mean, that's what's great about The Alchemy is that he's clearly not a sentimental filmmaker, even though he loves melodrama and is often perverting melodrama in many of his movies. And the humanist streak of him is so alive in this film in Straight Story. But even at the end of Blue Velvet, which is a violent, unpleasant movie, it's like there's beauty in this world.
Like a plastic bag.
Like
that's the most beautiful thing in the world.
That's what they're looking at. They're not looking at the robotic bird, but he believes in this beauty in the world, and I think this soot-filled, gaslit movie is beautiful to him, and therefore he makes it beautiful for us, rather than a more traditional Victorian thing where it's like, yeah, it's dingy and gross and everyone's kind of ill and these Cockney guys are coughing on each other and there's the freak show and everyone like it's very beautiful because he wants it to be.
Hannah Gordon is so good in this. An actor I'm not very familiar with who plays Treve's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And
She's
there's
lovely.
the scene where he brings Merrick over and Merrick compliments her and she just basically breaks down hysterically crying at the recognition of what a sensitive soul he is, right? I mean, that's my read on that scene.
Well, there's like 15 scenes in this movie where someone, 8 of which are Merrick, just burst into tears at the slightest hint of vulnerability.
Compassion,
which is like
empathy.
It's very melodramatic here, but like that is a Lynch. That's all. Like
the emotions.
Half of Twin
at the
Peaks
surface.
is women bursting into tears, uncontrollably, and Mulholland Drive is women bursting into tears. Like people randomly expressing extreme emotion is really common in all of his movies.
Well, the first like 30 minutes of this movie is every character who comes across him being like, I hope he is dumb.
Right.
I hope he is not.
It would almost be better if he was not even cognizant of like what's happening here.
Right. And so anytime that he like finally starts to indicate to people the level of not just like consciousness, but intelligence and beyond that sensitivity, it is like overwhelming to people to consider fuck. And he's had to live this way his whole life.
And then there's like an hour of people just being nice to him.
Yeah. The movie is people being mean to him for a bit, then nice for a while, then mean again for a bit, and then briefly nice again, but it's the end of his life.
Yeah, it's very sensitively done, which is why I was like, I love everything about this. Everything you're saying is valuable and fascinating. The content of the movie is very, there's not a lot of...
there's not much...
We could just list everything that's great about every scene.
Well, of course we can, and we may. But what is the plot of this movie? Is like
it's what
he is rescued from a very, very ignominious situation.
Yeah.
He's treated with more care and thought.
The halfway point of this movie, basically, almost, I mean, I didn't take a stopwatch to it, but I think right about the halfway point is Merrick saying, Treves, there's something I mean to ask you. Am I
can you
curable?
cure
Incredible.
Me?
And
he goes, and he's like, no.
A 10 I mean, it's just one of the best moments in anything.
For you.
Yes.
But then he says, like, we can care for you.
Yes.
Like, and it's like, yes, that's what they have to offer.
But he just says, oh, I thought not.
Right.
It's just, it's heartbreaking. It's incredible. Like, there's just...
It is.
I don't, again, like, who knows what the writing or the rewriting was, but the script is... Every scene has some line in it that's just a perfectly distilled gut punch of sentimentality that is not played in, like, a treacly manner.
Where's Hopkins at in his career
he
when
just
he makes
done
this?
Magic,
right? Which is a big film for him in terms of like his biggest leading man role at that point.
Right, it's kind of a flop, but it's like it's a Richard Attenborough movie. It's written by William Goldman. Yes, it is about a scary puppet, but like,
are you familiar with this film, Ben? It's Anthony Hopkins and a scary ventriloquist dummy that looks like Anthony Hopkins.
It's kind of like Slappy Origins. If you're a Goosebumps
The rumor has been that Sam Raimi is going to remake it, although there hasn't been any news on that in a while.
But it's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie directed by the man who did Gandhi and played John Hammond in Jurassic Park with young Anthony Hopkins and a very terrifying looking Anthony Hopkins puppet.
I find ventriloquist puppets really scary.
Then you would be very
You're
scared
the only one.
by the movie
It's a good
Magic.
movie.
Most people love those
Magic's
guys.
Yeah, I think they're coming back.
They might be coming back. Beyond
That
that,
would be a wild... Ben, that could be your new thing. Is Ben's like, I got a little puppet that looks like me that I put on my lap, then I carry him around.
I like trying to get over my fear by embracing it.
Outside of that, it's right. Like supporting roles in Lion of Winter, Hamlet. He, of course, was in Hamlet with Nicole Williamson, who listeners may remember.
Oh, go ahead. What might listeners
you probably
remember?
know him for his most famous role, Cagliostro, in the 1997 motion picture Spawn.
So yeah, he's actually pretty good in Spawn.
His final performance, he's incredible in Spawn.
No, like Hopkins, right? He's a reliable supporting actor and big theater guy.
Yeah.
His movie credits, he has good ones like Looking Glass War, or he was in A Doll's House. I think
I just watched that.
Looking Glass War,
The Frank Pearson one.
Yes,
not a good movie.
it's okay. I would say.
Thought it was very mediocre.
But he's kind of a company
bridge
player.
too far. But then he has quite a robust TV movie career.
Sure.
Like he had been the star of this big War and Peace miniseries that was a big deal. Blah blah blah. Right. But yes, he is not like a famous name in America, I would say. He's maybe just kind of approaching that. And then his whole 80s is more of what we're talking about. Like
well below an Alan Bates in terms of recognizable.
Definitely. Because Alan Bates is in like big movies in the 70s.
But this like levels him up seriously. But even then...
No, it's really...
Between 80 and 91, it's like, oh, the guy's officially like made himself a proven actor, but he is not at the tier of guy he becomes until Silence immediately makes him legendary.
He's still a TV guy. Like he won an Emmy for playing Hitler in like 1981.
Nice work if you can get it.
And like I would say The Bounty, which is not a very good movie, the Donaldson movie with Mel Gibson, is like maybe his biggest starring role where he's Bly. He's sort of the villain. Right. Silence of the Lambs is completely different, which is why his career in Silence of the Lambs is interesting of like now we have to turn this sort of late 40s actor into a mega star.
And he's like
what are the
20th
vehicles
choice
for him?
Playing a guy who already has been played by another guy in a flop movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, the thing that you may not know, Griffin, that I didn't know.
Alex just went to the bathroom. Let's hope the toilet makes it through intact.
Is that David Lynch wanted to do the makeup for this film.
Yes. I saw this.
And they were kind of like, look, you're directing the film. You're going to be pretty busy. But he was like, let me take a crack at it.
To the Eraserhead model of like, I am an artist. I make all the things.
He starts working on a suit that he refers to as organic. He said it wasn't really a suit. It was layers of stuff. It just would have needed some blending with John Hurt every day.
Yeah, I mean,
sounds like a bad
his idea was to limit application time by making a thing that was a little more piecemeal on and off, and then you're just actually blending the pieces into the flesh rather than needing to apply a bunch of different layers. At a certain point, everyone had to be like...
Well, I think they put it on him.
Yes.
They put something on him.
Yeah.
Lynch says it was kind of a disaster. It was like concrete. He couldn't really move around in it. And to everyone's relief, Lynch was like, okay, well, I tried, and like backed off.
The makeup
but apparently it shook his confidence.
Astounding in this.
Yes.
It is wild. I was like, how did this not get a makeup nomination? Then you remember it's before that was a thing.
They created the makeup category at the Oscars in response to this film.
Yeah.
Whoa, really?
Yes. And like people were kind of like, why can't it win an award? And they're like, well, we don't have one. I guess we'll make one. But apparently it did fuck him up. He was upset that he couldn't pull this off. They have to rearrange the entire schedule so they shoot everything without John Hurt first so they can figure out the makeup.
Yeah. Your classic kind of, well, a lot of movies we've covered like this, RoboCop and Predator and whatever.
Right, like, oh shit,
Your
some injury,
character.
right, yeah, has made this change. Yes, RoboCop, it's Weller not being able to use the suit. Mel Brooks calls David and says, I want you to know we're behind you 1,000%. Calms him down.
Yeah. I thing I love about the makeup is there is a quality of it feeling like the Cocteau version of how they would realize this character.
Yes.
There's a certain degree of like conscious, I wouldn't even say artificiality, but like a more classical technique than even what prosthetics were in 1980.
Sure. It took 7 hours to put on.
Believe it?
Every day?
Yep.
I wondered watching it.
Yes.
Does he have to, that makes sense if it's the whole body, but since a lot of the movie.
Right. It's just the face.
I do wonder.
I don't know.
Did he put on like, the entire from neck to waist?
Yeah.
They just say
or was there like a sort of dummy version of that could be put on easily that provided the same shape?
But even then, in my experience, even if it cut the time down, it still would take several hours to put on all the pieces, even if there aren't the pieces that need to play on camera.
Seems unfun.
Hurt would only shoot every other day.
Okay.
He would get to set at 5 a.m. He would sit for 7 hours. He would sip raw eggs mixed with orange juice because he couldn't like eat anything.
I mean, look, it doesn't look easy, but it's one of those things where I was watching
shoot from like noon till 10.
And I was like, if you are someone like John Hurt with that level of emotional intelligence and skill, and obviously just like innate empathy, right?
Right.
It must have been really easy to get there. Like you go through the 7 hours to get into this physical form, and then it's like so much of what's motivating your character is the actual physical limitations that have been placed upon you.
Has there, at this point, been anything comparable? Because now you hear 8 hours in the makeup chair to transform, whatever.
To make a clump, yes.
To make a clump, for example.
It takes about 8 hours a clump.
Where was that process at this time? Because obviously there are things
I don't know, man.
like that. There's your little big men.
Sure.
There's things that are like, oh, wow. But even still, I feel like that process,
it's hard.
As you're saying, there's no award for it. It's basically a brand new thing of like, we can put so much on you that it takes a day to do it.
It is hard to think of another movie that predates this in which like your primary character is this fully transformed for the entire running time. Where it's not even like...
Yeah, I wonder.
Well, but as on a reference, and as the movie sort of does with the train station scene, you have like your Frankenstein
right.
is
You're
that
monsters.
very truly.
But those characters in those forms are in those movies less than you remember, and they also were like a ton of stuff on the
Usually
head.
15 minutes of a 70-minute movie.
Right, and then it's like a costume with some padding, you know?
But that's close. That's as close as it gets, but there's 50 years in between that process. And I thought about Frankenstein when he knocks the little girl over before screaming the line that you said earlier.
This movie feels very influenced by James Whale.
Which seems like one of the few types of films or filmmakers that Lynch would allow himself to acknowledge as having seen.
I've never heard him say it, but this film has that energy.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, he says he used the black and white kind of, for obvious reasons. He thinks color is too vivid, too real. Like it helps you, feel like you're in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it was what he had worked with on Eraserhead, so he's more used to it.
But it's strange that he doesn't, he's a black and white guy in my mind from the power of the shorts.
Yes.
Eraserhead. This
doesn't really do it.
The
again.
Return,
so
episode 8 becomes kind of almost his return to black and white, and like
it's so wild to think of him going straight from this to full color Dune.
It is. I mean, it's crazy to think of it. Yeah, it is. It's crazy to think of him making Dune.
It's crazy to think of him making this. It's all crazy because of how much he's mythologized.
Yes.
In culture and how much he
was like
helped that mythology.
This young gun that a lot of people on the set are like, who's this guy? And by the end, they kind of have more grudging respect. And Hurt says, like, I think he grew as an artist.
By his own account, has some doubt if he can pull it off and all of that. But this movie opens with like, I don't know, like 3 minutes of like audio visual poetry that feels very much like the opening of Eraserhead.
It's something that when you come back to this movie for the second or third time, you're like, oh, this really, because you spend the intervening years watching the rest of his movies. You're like, Elephant Man's kind of an outlier.
Right.
Then you put it back on, and in the beginning, you're like, this feels exactly like a David Lynch movie.
Right. Industrial noise and slow motion footage of elephants and
in my head,
angel
there's
women.
more of this.
Always. In my head, there's so much more.
And there's not.
He makes it count.
But again, there's this kind of extremely unpleasant soundtrack screaming of this woman.
Yes.
Again, a very Lynch sound effect to just have this vague sense of terror piercing into the movie.
I also like that he's thinking about, because obviously the whole thing with John/Joseph Merrick is like, we to this day don't totally know what was up with him.
Yeah.
They now think he had this thing called Proteus symptom, which is like an incredibly rare syndrome, incredibly rare disease that makes your tissue grow in weird ways. But like, that's something that like a few hundred people have had ever or whatever. But they don't even know. They've done like tests on him, right? And we still, like on the bones and on his ancestors.
His bones are in a museum.
Well, yes, but you have to have special permission to see them, I think. You need to maybe be like...
Are you thinking of the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, Ben?
No, I looked at his...
They have a cast of him at the Mutter Museum.
Right, and obviously Michael Jackson.
I was going to say Michael Jackson had the skeleton, or was that just an urban legend?
He tried to buy it. I mean, or maybe it's an urban legend. It's one of those classic.
It's such I thought the same. There's not even a reference to it on Wikipedia, so it must have been scrubbed from anything resembling fact.
Right.
But
I mean,
watching the movie and thinking
they called him Wacko Jacko. I don't know.
I've heard that before.
Who said that?
I'm just repeating what I've heard.
And on what grounds?
You come back to the movie and like you've convinced yourself like, oh yeah, well the Elephant Man was like that because his mom was run over by an elephant.
That's what I mean. Like that's exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like Lynch is like, I want to try and think about some abstract origin for this person, even if we'll never actually address it in the film.
The little special feature on the Criterion is interesting with this historian who's like a real Merrick historian. I think he belongs to the University Medical Academy where his remains are.
Right.
But he basically, Merrick basically believed that his entire life. There was no reason at the time to second guess what it's called, matriarchal imprinting or something. Like that the experiences the mother has would imprint on a fetus while in the womb.
Right. So like she's like got run over by an elephant and then it
or had an encounter
with an elephant.
More simply that she was just frightened by one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I've said a couple times, like the content of this movie is perfect, but not complex. Like the Merrick story, what's complex and interesting is that the movie does adhere fairly closely to his story.
Right.
There's a couple of dramatic license flippings of events, but it even mentions like he wasn't like this at birth, and it seems to vary. Did this start when he was 2 or 5? But he did have a normal life for a little while.
Right.
And the love of his mother that seems to be like a very melodramatic driving force in the movie is very real. And a lot of what was known about him is that at his exhibit at the sideshow or whatever it would have been called, he wrote or he dictated like a little pamphlet of his own life story from which most of his details are known.
Right. And obviously we can only know so much, right? Because it's this recollection from him.
Yeah. But essentially, like what the movie gets right is that he'd run away and had been, he's trying to make money, a showing here
work in factories, but he had these increasing like issues and deformities and things like that made it harder and harder for him to do anything.
You get the sense that he learned it was safer for him as a defensive measure to let people think that he was not intelligent.
Right.
Which is heartbreaking.
Yes. At one point, he had surgery on his face, I think, to try and deal with it when he was like a teenager. I mean, Lord knows what surgery really looked like or whatever, but
attacking someone with a rusty blade
while you're
that had been held over a flame, while the person is awake.
And then, well,
there's a surgery scene in this movie.
I have to leave the workhouse, and the only way is to like be a human novelty, right?
I mean, I'm scrubbing through the movie now. It is truly minute 30 when you see him for the first time. The movie has like made such an effort around, and you're seeing him in shadow, abstracted, in silhouette.
And Eraserhead does similar tricks with some of the practical effects.
Yes.
Conceals them in a way that you feel like you're seeing them a lot, and you feel like they're in a lot more of the movie than they are.
Yeah.
But the thing with this is, you don't see it much at all. And then you do see it lots. Like, then he
becomes, of course, the primary character.
Right, exactly. He is the lead of the film.
Right. The first 30 minutes, Hopkins is really driving the movie.
Yes.
And then it's when the maid opens the door for the first time, you get this incredibly clear, unvarnished shot of just him sitting in bed, and she just immediately breaks into tears.
But also, like, in terms of the craft of this movie and the sort of like the Lynch, you can't believe he has it in him. When Hopkins sees him at the exhibit, it's the Spielberg shot.
Yes.
It pushes in on him as a tear runs down his face.
Yeah.
And it goes on for 10 seconds longer than you think this reaction shot will.
Yeah.
And that is kind of, you feel your introduction to him, but it is such a empathetic shot. But it is a shot that now is a cliche because Spielberg's used it 100 times. But to see Lynch do it at a time that Spielberg would have maybe only done it twice.
Yes.
He's kind of not inventing, but it's like parallel thinking of this idea. And Hopkins brings humanity to that moment, and whatever he's looking at, he's crying, but not out of fear, just out of sadness.
Well, and just like he's processing this guy's life. He's trying to project.
It's not just, what pain he must be in. It's like, how has he been living for so long? Like, what horror must he?
But here's another example of like this. Let's assume for the sake of argument that this was a John Hurt decision.
Yeah.
Is the woman comes in, as you're just saying, and is startled, frightened.
It's basically treated as like a Universal Monsters horror scream moment.
Right.
Yes.
She drops the porridge.
Immediately starts crying, turns away, cowers in fear.
Talking to Cargom, and then he comes up.
He hears the scream. He
goes in, and let's just imagine that Hurt is his decision to say, when you come in, I'm going to be hiding in the corner.
Yeah.
Now, that could have been written or it could have not been written, but like the way it's framed, very far away, and then the intervening 2 minutes that Merrick is so upset by this interaction that he's not sitting on the bed, he's not crying, he's just gone to cower in the corner.
Yeah.
As a physical acting choice, it conveys more than almost anything could, and as a visual storytelling choice, it's like, you can't believe that the guy who made experimental short films and an experimental feature has the craft to just have a wide shot of a main character expressing such emotional sadness from across the room because he's hiding in a corner because he's sad.
Well, and another incredible decision is Hopkins hears the scream. He immediately knows what's happened, right? He runs upstairs. She's like in hysterics, crying and like borderline convulsing. And Hopkins walks right past her into Merrick's room and goes like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And then circles back to her and goes like, "I'm sorry, I should have given you notice." But it's like you're waiting to see who he's going to console first when he starts running up the stairs.
And there's also like, it's clear that Lynch, his entry into this is that he finds the inner workings of a steam and coal and gas powered building the size of this hospital very fascinating.
Yes.
Like, he clearly loves the idea of this industrial space. He loves the smokestacks. He loves the coal shoveling. There's always this really loud humming in the entire building that you imagine is the steam that's powering a lot of it. There's a lot of business with turning the gas lamps on and off.
It becomes more ominous when you're also like the guy shoveling the coal to run this place is also the guy within the building who's exploiting him the most and is this sort of like looming specter.
The inner workings of the clock.
Right. That's
so loud.
I also feel like that's
the
Lynch's
clock seems to really upset Merrick.
Is that the world, if you dig below the world, there's like a big wheel that a bunch of men are turning who are shirtless while someone goes like bang, bang.
Yes.
Like that's just how he thinks about the world. Like especially he doesn't know Victorian London at all. And he visits London. This film was shot in London, which is where I grew up. Interesting point about me.
It's almost unfair when you do it like this.
Well, when he's here, I'm going to do it like
I'm
this.
just picturing the guy running the exhibit and the little boy, and David is the boy. David's Dexter Fletcher, and he's out there and he's kind of just like carrying plates at the pub for a shilling or two here and there.
Covered face.
Yeah. Were you really sooty?
No.
Were you a sooty child?
Was I a sooty child? I liked Sooty, the British puppet character.
That's not what we were asking, and you know
Okay,
it.
but can you tell me Sooty's sidekick?
No, I don't know who the fuck
No
Sooty
one can
is.
tell.
Wait, hold on.
Sooty's
Let me
like
try and
from
guess. Dirt?
No, Sweep.
Sooty and Sweep?
Here's Sooty.
Sooty's not dirty
Sooty's
at all.
actually-
Sooty's pretty cute.
Sooty's pretty cute.
Yep. And Sweep is a little dog. Maybe I should show that to my daughter.
Well, Sooty looks
Is
like a
this a-
dog.
is
What's
this a
Sooty?
show?
Sweep's also a
Oh,
little
they're
dog.
both.
It was a
different
show.
types of dog.
Yeah, British children's show.
Cute.
Anyway,
London
puppet
was disgusting in those days, huh?
well, back then, certainly, yes. London now, obviously.
saying when you
In the
lived
1980s.
Oh, yeah. When I lived
Yeah.
there, yes, they were still
Yeah.
burning coal fires in everyone's house. Yes. No. Lynch is like, I was a naive guy. I'd never been to England, right? Like, I was like, maybe I'll read some books and study some photos and that. And then he said, I went to East London. I walked around this hospital where we shot a lot of the film, Homerton Hospital, which I think back then was like, had not been revamped and was probably pretty old school feeling.
Okay.
And he said something came over me, a feeling invaded me, and I was transported to like Victorian England. Like I just felt everything doing this, which I think is obviously often his process, right? That
Yeah.
But it's
he
interesting
summons
that
some kind of feeling.
he makes no period piece again ever, and I would argue
That is interesting.
nails it
Dune's set in
beyond
the future.
beyond. He just, this is so incredibly done and thusly
right.
rewarded by the Academy in the classic way that something like this would. You would think that he would be very interested in using his films to explore these parts of time that he doesn't have access to.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I mean,
you know,
I
And
agree,
as
yeah.
we've
projects
discussed,
that are
like, this is now-
pastiche-y, where Lost
Yeah.
Highway and Blue Velvet both seem to have a foot in the 50s, but
Always,
they're not
really.
overtly. Right.
But it's just this is now this ongoing infuriating debate of like, why do all of our great filmmakers not care about the
They're
present?
afraid of cell phones.
But like you would think he would just be someone that retreated into the past, and in a way, as very metaphorically, he has.
He's always got the vibe.
But he literally doesn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
No, it's
very
interesting.
it's very unusual. Once again, with this, like you almost wonder what his career would have been like if he'd done 2 more movies like this,
yeah.
because this is so well done.
It is interesting to think about. Let's say he still gets to Blue Velvet, but rather than spending so much time on Dune, he makes like odd, interesting, but mid-sized studio films for a while.
But I don't think that's a thing. I think this
Obviously,
movie
this is fantasy.
well,
I mean, it
works
wouldn't happen.
out so well for everybody, right? That it's like, oh, this works. There's a midpoint between David Lynch and the demands of a studio film.
Right.
He can bring things to somewhere a little more interesting, but the audience will still follow it there. And then Dune is like trying to stress test that on a humongous scale. And it is so bad that he's just never going to try again to like meet anyone in the middle.
It's
right?
very interesting, and obviously you'll get there. But Twin Peaks really is like the dividing line, and like everything before that is really one version of a career.
Sure.
And then the phenomenal success and insane flame out of that clearly breaks him.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't, after Wild at Heart, Fire Walk with Me, Close Together, he has 5 years of inactivity practically.
He's making furniture. We'll talk about
after many years of quite prolific activity.
Yeah.
Right.
And Lost Highway, okay, straight story, of course, off to the side again, but almost feels like Lost Highway is like movie number 1, take 2.
Yes.
And then
And
straight stories like Elephant Man,
don't like it. Yeah.
Sidestep, take 2.
Right.
Then
Right.
Mulholland Drive is like Blue Velvet.
You're right.
We're going to like get back on track.
But it's also Twin Peaks take 2. Like it's him trying
is.
to do a second Twin Peaks, and then when that doesn't work, it becomes a second version of Blue Velvet.
Yeah, and then he makes a second version of Twin Peaks. Like he
Right.
really mirrored his own career in a very weirdly Lost Highway-ish way. Like he did the whole thing again.
The back half of his career is the Getty.
He kind of did the exact same plays again.
Getty.
It's a temporal pincer movement.
I would say
he runs it backwards and forwards at the same time.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson did call Lynch's career cowboy shit. I will point that out. He called it that.
Yeah.
But it's a very obviously a one of a kind career, but this weird kind of like, I'm just going to do it all again. But I'm not going to make the mistakes. I'm not going to make the studio movies I don't want to make. I'm not going to go too far down the road with things. I'll only do Twin Peaks if I have complete control and unlimited resources and I can finish it the way I want. Like, it's very strange that he really hit a lot of the same beats twice.
Yes.
As I said, almost undeniably with more successful and consistent results.
I would say at least consistent.
Not that I
in
think
terms
any of these movies are better than
reaction.
Eraserhead, Blue Velvet, or The Elephant Man, but one could argue that the second part of his career is.
Is there a Lynch project that you've never liked or vibed with or struggled to respond to or whatever?
No.
Yeah, you like them all.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
Colossally important to me forever.
Sure.
I've never seen Dune.
You've never seen Dune?
No, because I always wanted to read the book before I saw it.
And you read all the
books. Then I read
books.
the book and I thought, well, now I want to read all of them.
I'm about to finish Chapter House. I forgot to tell you. I finally did it.
You're not done yet. You got 2 more.
No. Chapter House is the final Frank.
I know, but you'll get to the end of it.
I know it has a cliffhanger.
And you'll be like, because I was thinking that's it.
Yeah,
and I got to the end and I thought, shit, I really want to keep reading. And then the last 2 are great.
The ones his son did.
Yeah. The names of which is Sandworms
and another one. Whatever.
They're wonderful.
Okay.
They're really worth reading, and they're much breezier reads.
Obviously.
But they're really, really good.
Okay.
And I just never got around to it because I wanted to familiarize myself with the world of Dune first. And I was going to, if I had more time, I would have watched it before this. I suspect I'll like it a lot, but
it's a pretty good movie with a lot of massive problems.
I'm not, how they're Twin Peaks people. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not a Twin Peaks person. I don't have like this encyclopedic knowledge of Twin Peaks.
Sure.
I've seen the entire series a few times,
right.
and I
I'm
like
you.
it a lot.
Right.
I've seen Fire Walk with Me many times, but I'm not like someone who's like.
But then, there are
I'm
Twin
going
Peaks
to the Black
people,
Lodge,
right? Who know every single in and out and tiny
yeah,
character.
and we're getting
These guys
Easter
have never
eggs
seen it
in the new version.
Yeah. Oh no, I've
seen it. You've seen all of it.
I fell off basically after the,
and you haven't seen the Return.
I don't know how to give it. I don't want to give anything away.
Sure.
But I kind of, it came to a certain point.
Yes, I understand.
And then I didn't really continue it.
You and much of America.
When I was around this time watching these movies, a friend of my dad's from work had all of Twin Peaks taped. He taped it when it was on.
Sure.
And it was, of course, unavailable. So the way I saw it is that I got 1 tape at a time from this buddy of my dad's, 2 episodes per tape, and I watched them for months. And, it felt illegal. Like there was it was like, how can this have existed? And Ben's got a tape right there. But see, this guy had taped them off the TV
Was
himself.
that from the Uncle Bag?
That is from the Uncle Bag.
Wow, which episodes?
That's pretty late. It's got the A on the spine.
So
it's on the back half.
Twin Peaks.
It's 20 through 24.
Ooh.
Okay, so that's season 2.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nothing. Dumbland is horrible. Rabbits was fine.
I liked Rabbits.
It was fine.
It's Crazy Rabbits.
On the Air is fine.
Never.
On the Air is very weird.
Sure.
Yeah.
I believe it.
But like, have you guys read? Did you read the David Foster Wallace piece about him?
Yes,
No.
of course. You mean
No?
the Lost Highway
No,
piece?
I don't
Yeah.
think I've read it.
Ben?
We discussed it on that episode.
Okay.
Not to spoil it.
I reread most of it this morning. It's I think the best thing written about Lynch.
Wow.
I think it's easily the best. Obviously, thousands of things have been written about him. I think this is the best piece ever written about him. I think it's the most concise attempt to understand him, written by a Gen Xer who has had his life changed by his work, and specifically, as he talks about, by seeing Blue Velvet. And I think it's just like one of the best pieces of film journalism ever written.
I completely disagree with you, but I do like his writing.
Completely disagree?
I hate that art piece.
You hate it?
Sucks.
Really?
Why?
It's annoying. We get into it in the Lost Highway episode.
I don't remember. That was
but
18
I do think it's a
years
fun
ago.
piece of writing. I like reading it in a way, but I don't know.
He speaks very highly in it of
Yes.
Elephant Man, very briefly, but he lists it among his best films.
Sure.
Because he says his best films have very fully human realized characters, which this does in the emotional ways we're talking about, that according to Wallace, Sailor and Lula are not fully realized characters. They're very...
I would say he's writing that piece in this era of kind of like Lynch has really been struggling of late, right? You know, which is sort of the
gone up
mood
his own butt.
around Lost Highway.
This is meant to be his comeback, and it gently is, but not really.
Not at the time. No, yeah.
I can't believe you hate that piece. It's the best.
As film writing, I don't like it.
Well, it's not criticism. It's film journalism.
Yeah.
Name a better, like, I went to the set of this movie.
I don't want to.
I would
can't.
like you to.
David, do it.
No, I don't want to right now.
Do you have
I just can't. No.
Guys, stop fighting.
I just can't do it. It's just not in me.
It's an incredible piece that does really get at, like, what is this guy's deal at a time that, as you know, he'd fallen out of favor, like Industrial Symphony No. 1 and On the Air, and like these things were all like 92, and then there's just nothing for years.
He's cooked is the thought. Again, we will talk about this on the Lost Highway episode with your friend David Lowery.
Yeah.
Not to spoil.
Not to spoil, you just spoil the hell out of it.
Spoil the hell.
It's been recorded for weeks. You can spoil it.
More than weeks, right? I mean, we did a classic deal.
We can tell people. We don't have to hide it.
Okay, but they can't tell anybody.
Oh, that's a good point. If you're listening,
Don't tell anybody. What's David doing? He's putting on a baseball cap and then keep it under your hat?
Not a Montreal Expos hat.
no, I don't have my Expos hat today. Alex is very.
You just have a hat among the pile of things on your desk.
Okay, all right. Yes.
Jack Skellington
Yeah, there's a right now.
doll that Reese gave you for your daughter
I have
months
a pile
ago.
of things.
Well,
on
you know
my
what,
desk.
Ben,
present
you
for your
know
daughter.
that right now, me coming home with things is not well received in my house.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so I come home slowly with extra.
Do you want the
things.
slinky?
Oh, I do want my slinky.
Oh, well.
But I want it for here so I can fidget.
That'd be a nice sound for people.
Ben bought me a slinky.
Yeah,
Immediate
imagine
disaster.
how it played out, Alex. He got him a fucking steel slinky.
Yeah, cool.
I thought it would be fun.
I think
No, every episode requires 8 editing passes.
It's knitted across like 3 to 4 episodes that are not in order of me having a
all
slinky
over.
and then Ben taking the slinky
Almost
away
like a
from me.
tangled slinky.
Yes, truly.
A very Lynchian object.
Tanked and stretched out of whack.
Okay, I'm sorry to point out the pile.
Elephant Man.
Elephant Man.
My pile is nothing
I mean,
compared
the
to his
middle
pile
hour
anyway.
of the movie.
That is true.
As there's every scene is perfect, and it's a
Yes.
lot of the same stuff happening as his social status increases, and after Anne Bancroft visits, there's a series of increasing. His dignity is building as the
Yes.
you know.
Bancroft plays an actress, and I feel like Lynch is very interested in like Merrick's like limited but intense relationship with art, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like that's a whole further sort of dimension of life. I mean, it's a very cool. You have your is this UK or
I got the Studio
4K.
Canal 4K set, but it has the pop up of the cathedral.
Here's
that
what I
he's
can say
building.
of Griffin's
Right.
Blu-ray pile: Mulholland Drive, Straight Story, Wild at Heart, Dune, Meet
Checks
Joe
out.
Black,
Yeah.
The Elephant Man.
Correct.
These are films we're covering.
If people want to reverse engineer release order, these are things we haven't recorded yet.
Fair enough.
Griff, can I give you huge news?
Please.
Vulture is launching Saturday and Sunday Cinematrix.
This is huge.
Holy fucking shit! Let's go!
Wow.
Ben's never looked more blank.
Ben, not a Cinematrix guy, I think.
No.
I got very mad
Griff
at
and I,
Cinematrix the other day because for the Sarah Michelle Gellar, it was one word. I put Scooby-Doo and it said no.
I think it should give you the yes on that.
Well,
I do think
As a hyphenated?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think
But
when
in the movie, it's not hyphenated. Am I wrong?
No one knows that.
I know that.
I like
That's
the
my
idea.
entire
Wait.
stock in this world.
I like the idea that no one knows that. It's just not known.
You're in the room with the one guy who knows it. How
Nobody
dare you
knows
say that to me?
How that title is
I know
spelled.
I'll say
exactly
this.
how that
in the
fucking
movie.
title
I'll
is
say
spelled.
this. Largely on the posters, there is a hyphen. However, there is one where there is not, which is not helping matters.
When the title came up in the typing bar, it was
They had a
hyphenated.
I would say that's
You know what's interesting?
I ate shit on that today because I guess I was like, as we discussed, Griffin, I get very hung up on the Rotten Tomatoes ones.
Oh, well,
and I was like, Matt Damon, Rotten Tomatoes. I was like, I don't fucking know. Interstellar? No, not 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was a masterpice. What the hell are we talking about here?
People were a little mixed on it.
Exactly.
But mixed to the extent of 81%, I assumed.
We have a group text with the Clem Dog, Sean Clemens of Hollywood Handbook, where we post our Cinematrix grids every day and talk through our strategy. And every Saturday morning, Sean will text some incredibly funny variation on Saturday, the day I wish I were dead.
Right.
No grid to play.
So it's coming Saturdays and Sundays.
So it's
good news.
40%
it's
more
great
Cinematrix.
news for Sean's children.
Right now
Daddy's sticking around.
There to me is just such a gulf between Cinematrix I play in the morning before coffee and after. I'm so much sharper with the coffee.
I got the other day, the Glenn Powell, Ethan Hawke, Richard Linklater.
Yes, sure, right.
Even though I played
Memorial.
Maverick for Glenn Powell, I still got top 1%. Because I had so many
you got other
3
polls.
2s and 1%.
I love that they've added the lowest correct score.
Yeah, but that's
thing.
bullshit.
But here's what I liked about
When you look at that, you're like, Demi Moore, the Comedy Central roast of Bruce
some of
Willis.
that shit shouldn't count.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Some of that shit seems like people looked it up.
And documentaries where they're a talking head or whatever.
That sucks.
But that day, 3 out of the 9 squares, the lowest correct score was Apollo 11 and a half.
Yeah, I guess I had that in there.
There was no place you could play it that wouldn't win for you.
I had that in there, but then also for Hawk, many words in the title, In a Valley of Violence, I got 1%.
Oh, that's a good one.
And then I dropped for like a certain the year bracket, Adopt a Highway, 1%. I put Top Gun Maverick for Glenn Powell, and every other thing I had was 1 or 2%. I got 1% of the whole game.
I put Dark Knight Rises for 3+ words for Glenn Powell. I was really happy with that.
Yeah, that's good. I did Spy Kids 3D Game Over, of course.
I didn't know he was in that.
He plays Boy with Long Fingers.
One of my favorite movies of all time, The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
It's a struggle.
I
tell you guys I dressed up as the Elephant Man for Halloween one year?
No, how'd that go over?
Great. I'd never been happier as concealed as I was.
How did everyone else feel about it?
I don't know. I could barely see them.
Can I say this about, I've known you for a while at this point, Alex. I do feel like when you'll say like, I did this or this happened, and I'll say, oh, how did that go? Your answer is either going to be like, great, best thing that ever happened, was wonderful, or like, horrible,
disaster,
worst thing in the world.
ever.
Like, here's why. Like, you rarely are like, it was fine.
Well,
as I'm like, what'd you think of Thor 5, Thor farts in a cup? And you were like, it was great. I had a great time. This was a great film.
My new favorite
100%.
Alexism is
you're
referring
confusing
to something as a total F.
Yeah, well, that happens.
We were talking about theme parks recently.
But it could be like a life experience.
And you said any ride with a screen is a total F for me.
Yeah. Yeah, like a couple years ago, a friend of mine had me take the the personality test thing, and I was like, I don't understand how this tests work. Every one of these questions, the answer can only be 5 or 1. And she was like, that's your personality. That's not true.
Right.
Most people wouldn't.
You tend to just
and
be
you were
like,
this
thumbs up,
test
thumbs
is
down.
Like
total
every
F.
single question. It's like, how strongly do you feel about this? And I was like, the answer is either 5 or 1. I don't need the other answer.
I nailed it then.
I don't need 2, 3, or like, who feels 3 about something? This is insane
Cowards.
to me. You're confusing. I feel like you roasted me about this. The Thor 4 thing is just that it had 4 Guns N' Roses songs in it. So therefore it's an automatic B+. I don't make the rules.
But you also sometimes say the same
you often
thing.
will say you don't make the rules when clearly you made a very specific rule, such as amount of Guns N' Roses songs.
About any movie where you're able to eat popcorn while
which is most
watching
movies. Well, yesterday when we all saw Bad Boys Ride or Die, Griffin coincidentally, I couldn't eat popcorn because I was still so sick.
Oh.
Kind of dinged the experience for me.
I'm surprised the film still came out ahead with you.
Yeah, but it would have been half a star better if I had been feeling healthy enough to eat any popcorn.
And that reflects upon the film.
It's like Scooby-Doo hyphenated not being one word. I don't make those rules.
So I'm looking. Well, you actually don't make those rules. I'm looking here. It seems like almost every Scooby-Doo TV show, his name has been hyphenated. The first movie, it is not. Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, it is.
I should have just, maybe it was one word.
The first live-action Scooby-Doo is the one that isn't hyphenated, but also it tends to be referred to as Scooby-Doo unhyphenated : the movie.
SD2.
Well, that's SD2 Monsters Unleashed.
I don't make the rules. Dressing up as the Elephant Man was awesome.
Was it for Halloween or?
Yeah, no, it's for Halloween.
Sure.
It'd be very weird if it wasn't.
I don't know.
Did you?
You never know.
It was sack.
I made it myself. I'll send you guys a picture of it,
please,
for sharing when this comes out. I made the entire costume myself.
The bag head.
I made the head with a lot of, it was like a series of deconstructed t-shirts with a lot of like sewn in pouches so that the outside of it looked smooth, but the inside of it had lots of lumps where they needed to be. One eye hole stitched correctly. I made a cap.
I love his cap.
I made a cloak. I made a thing for my arm. And then the other arm, I carried a cane. And I wore like herringbone pants.
Yeah.
You know, like when he gets dressed up, when he gets his clothes. And, Anna and I just went out and I just like stayed like that all night.
Is it, to me, it is.
It's the perfect way to be out in public. I felt. No offense to people who suffer with.
I think
I was about to say also, John Merrick in this film does not agree.
No, but he is happy to be out. Sometimes.
But there's also this sort of tragedy in that, like, he is now liberated enough in a way to have a window out to the world, right? Like, once he's ensconced with the doctor and like, and that is his undoing. Like, then people start to stare at him through the window and they kidnap him.
It is the part
because
of the movie I find most devastating to watch.
Right.
Is when the Boiler Man character, who, I mean, it's very shortly after the maid sees him and you're seeing Merrick for the first time.
Sure.
The scene where the Boiler Man meets him for the first time is like within minutes of that.
Right.
And it is jarring to see someone else walk into the room and be so unaffected by his visual appearance when the movie has been hiding him from us. And then immediately he's just like, we're going to make so much fucking money together.
Well, it's this incredible thing that like is in these great British period piece film. Like, when the nurse at the end, Hopkins is like, when he came here, you showed him no regard. And she's like, I cleaned him. I cleaned up after him. And it's like, there is this class story being told in the background of this movie, as there is.
Yes, 100%.
Literally or not, in all films set in Britain. Like, these people like this, like the Soot people don't care.
Yeah.
They're there for the titillation.
Well, beyond that, they live lives of abject toughness, and they are not as shocked by seeing someone,
like that. But that is who comes there with the two women, and he's almost using as an aphrodisiac to feel more powerful about himself.
I mean, that's just so that scene could be in any Lynch movie.
Yes,
like that. A guy with two women who are screaming in terror as he forces himself on them. Like that could be in Lost Highway. That scene could be in Twin Peaks: The Return.
But the part of the film that devastates me the most is when the Boiler Man, I keep calling him that, but is like gathering a larger audience, right? It's like, because he's been coming in and out of the film occasionally.
It's this thing that, again, the movie doesn't spell this out.
No.
But he's been maybe bringing one or two people to the window, and then you're like, he's taking it too far. He's bringing a tour bus,
And Merrick's self-regard is so low that he doesn't want to say it to anyone else. There's this feeling of him being like, why would I deserve any better? This is a better version of the dynamic that's been going on for most of my life.
Which is, the movie then makes text, which Hopkins brings up and then does get kind of dropped, where it's like, am I just doing the same thing?
Which I think Hopkins just destroys that scene.
It's incredibly melancholy, but like, you do think like Merrick could say like, people come to my room, you need to lock my room or put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which would be very humane.
He never says anything. He never tells anybody.
It's very interesting that doesn't happen.
But it makes sense.
It does make perfect. The movie doesn't put a fine point on almost anything, despite the fact that it is an incredibly blunt and literal movie.
But this is why I'm saying, like, the thing I find most devastating is when the Boiler Man is like gathering this tour group, right? And you just cut back to Merrick in his room, and he's brushing his hair and like adjusting his outfit.
But then he has his little dressing kit,
and he's dressing himself up to the nines for no specific reason, not to go anywhere. But you're seeing the sense of like pride he has in himself and comfort and like the care he's putting into himself for the first time, and you just know how violently this is about to be punctured.
Because you've been waiting for something to go wrong, because things have been going great for him. I mean, the closest you get is when
they're gonna go harder on him, which they basically do the second they open the door of like,
and because
look at you, you're dressed up now,
and Freddie Jones, is sneaking back.
Yeah.
You know that the guy who's been trying to get him back is coming this time.
Right.
So it feels worse.
And it's
putting on airs,
gonna have this upper hand to be able to go like, hey, I treated you better than this.
Again, like a very Lynch thing. Again, how does this movie fit in? Like, it's very much like the apartment in Eraserhead.
Yes.
And some other key locations where like Merrick's room, the way it changes as the movie goes on.
Yeah.
And I was kind of shocked to see this wasn't Jack Fisk production design.
Yeah, it does
Kind
feel
of like
him.
one of the only ones. And it's
so Spartan.
also above the board craft. I mentioned
I was going to say,
the Freddie Francis cinematography, I think, is the key to your friend saying this looks like the 40s because his 60s British Gothic cinematography and directing is, he's just one of the great underrated
He's a great
heroes of British cinema.
DP,
we'll
Sons
get
and
to it,
Lovers,
but
I think, is one of, is
he's
the Jack Cardiff movie.
He's an absolute master.
A little astonishing that this movie wins 0 Oscars, and a lot of it is just the year it happened to be stuck in.
I was about to say it's the year.
But you just watch and you're like, it didn't win any of these?
Yeah, the editing is incredible, the way the scenes kind of cut off, but like...
There's not a tremendous amount of score, but the score that's in there is unbelievable.
Quite remarkable, but the
score is amazing, but it is, it's pre-Badalamenti. It's, what's his name? John Morris.
But the sound design, his movies obviously his movies are obviously, it's like the Wes Anderson production design thing. You're like, how does every Lynch movie not just win sound design?
Right, and you're like, this guy twice got director nominations for films that got no other nominations in any other category.
One of the weirdest things about it.
His only 3 movies to get acting nominations, his only 3 performances are Hurt in This, Diane Ladd and Wild at Heart.
An amazing nod.
And what's the other one I'm forgetting?
Farnsworth.
And Farnsworth. Those are the only 3, right?
Yep, of course.
Which is also a weird 3.
Yeah. They didn't nominate Grace Zabriskie? I don't know. I don't know what the joke is there.
But like his room...
Balthazar Getty.
His room, much like your room here in Griffin's growing toy collection, the amount of dignity that we see on that shelf, both Griffin's and Merrick's...
All dignity. What we're looking at here is just a wall of dignity.
It shows like that as time goes on, like his treasures, whether they're the ones you see him be given, like the initial photo that he says he'll put in a place of honor next to his mother, which is, again, just a heartbreaking line.
Yes.
The phrase place of honor as he starts to cry, like... Everything he gets are the society people who become the question of like, are you just putting him on display for a different class of people?
Well, I think what this movie is asking is like, is there any way society could not exploit this man?
Exactly.
Even the noblest of intentions, is there something exploitative about it?
But like the finery he acquires in his clothing and his dressing kit. But again, like the Lynch touch is... the very, like, now you would call that, like, Americana kitsch of, like, the little boy on the wall praying and the little boy on the wall sleeping, which is obviously foreshadowing in this movie. But if you saw a little, a sort of, like, Quaker Mills-looking little boy on the wall in blue velvet, it wouldn't be out of place.
There are speakeasy craft cocktail bars that are styled exactly like Merrick's room in this movie.
And I got to go there with my costume on. Really let people know what's up. But like that, now
is the costume the bag or like an elephant man face?
Well, I explained the whole costume.
Yeah, what do you take? Where were you?
I think you were playing with your slinky.
I wish I was playing with my slinky.
It's a bag, the cap, a cloak.
Yeah, I just triple check.
He was playing with his sling. Did you see the far off look in his eyes as he said that?
He really did stare off into the
stupid
void.
headphone cord.
It was as if he had said, "I wish I was on the beach." As
David's look was like,
like the screen goes like.
It's like it was more like to me.
I'm just imagining being in the same seat at his desk, but with the sling.
Bahama, come on, pretty mama.
Do you remember on Seinfeld where George is bringing the thing to Jerry and then the guy's like, you want to join us for some frisbee golf? And then over one shoulder is the frisbee and over the other shoulder is Jerry going, what's the deal with airplane peanuts? David over one shoulder is the slinky and over the other shoulder is Griffin going, I'm sorry, but do you know about the way that this franchise was structured when it went straight to video? And David's like, gonna have to, the Griffin circle gets very small and the slinky one just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Merrick's finery and like the way that the character is built through his things is so delicate and so sad, but also
especially the model.
As Treves says, like when someone says this is exploitation, he goes, he's happier than he's ever been.
Yeah.
Every day of his life, he's more joyful and he's more of a human being than he ever would have been otherwise.
But there is a tragedy in that, like, that's probably true.
And Treves doesn't know that he's also being exploited.
He doesn't know that part. Right. But, like, that the idea is, like,
and
yes.
yet that still is true.
His best life possibly is just to be this genteel museum piece that the Queen of England is sort of like, I've heard you've been nice to this.
But that's
That
also
scene-
why
that
he
scene- that
doesn't
scene is
report
great.
the boiler man, because he's just like, my life is always going to be 30% shit.
And he's learned passivity
Right.
because he's been
He doesn't
treated
stand
so
up for
horribly.
himself.
No.
Even when they pass him around during their invasion, he goes limp, which is like literally what he does. And at any other point, he doesn't have the agency
It's what
to
makes
not
the-
be beaten.
I am a human being moment so profound.
The cathedral is real. Like he really built it.
They show it in the doc that's on the
It's
disc.
really beautiful.
Yeah, it's also right here in my Blu-ray packet there. It's
well,
a pop-up.
I do love the scene
It's real.
with Princess.
You are like my daughter right now. Where you're like, did you see this? I did just show it to
Dada. Did you see this, Dada?
you. Oh boy. Sorry, what were you saying?
The
Alex?
scene where Princess Alexandria
Yes.
comes
Yeah.
in and sort of reads the letter, and Gilgood gets the vote. And they get to say
that
like,
owl-looking motherfucker.
and they say like, this is your room. These
His
are
name
your
is
permanent-
literally like Mr. like Wide Neck or something. I need to look it up. Yeah, sorry.
When he gets to go in and say like, these are your rooms permanently. This is your home, and he says, my home. Like,
Yeah.
every moment like that is just maximum impact with minimal fuss.
Yes.
Which is not really the Lynch way. It's
No.
always maximal impact with maximum fuss.
Yeah.
There's a
what
lot
I-
of business in a lot of his movies.
Delicate is the word I keep coming back to, but there is like such a tremendous amount of restraint in this movie that in other films I find can border on like an over preciousness.
Broadneck. The guy's name, the bad guy in that scene, the guy who's like, well, I don't think there should be an elephant man, is called Broadneck, which is just a hilarious name.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? I say.
I'm going to press my luck. I kind of look like that guy from the No Whammies.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I also just like, that's a scene in a worse version of this movie, right?
Yes.
Like every Sony Pictures Classics release about like, did you know back in Victorian times there was a person who was different?
Yeah.
And like, there's like the person who's like, well, I'm a nice Englishman who thinks that it's fine that you're here.
Right.
And then there's the other guy's like, well, I'm a businessman who doesn't like it, and I think you should go away. And then they have an argument, and then the Queen.
I feel like you're
someone-
describing like the fate of an orphanage in a kids movie from the 60s.
But like there's so many movies like this where it's just like Tom Felton is just like, yes, I disagree with you. Bad.
And then they're like, all right, we'll take the vote. One more thing.
Right.
And the princess becomes
Right, then the Queen is like, yes, there should be an elephant man. You know, like that's the bad version of this movie.
But it's not even that I'd say this film is naturalistic, but like scenes like that play out in a way where you're like, this feels like what that would actually feel like.
It's
in that
restraint, like
room.
Alex said. Even though, right, like usually the emotions are at the surface with Lynch, and often in this film
Yes.
they are.
Yeah.
Like
It's
a
this
scene
sort
like
of-
that is not hammered in your face.
despite the fact that he is a very extreme filmmaker
Yeah.
with extreme tendencies and
Right.
aesthetics.
A lot
and
of skateboarding and
Yes.
Mountain Dew. Yeah.
thrashing music, a lot of Doritos dust on his fingers. The X
Sneakers
Games.
that light up. You know, the sneakers that light up, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
the sneakers, Elida.
Yeah, yeah.
Got Ben's
Beyblades.
interest.
I'm now just
he-
imagining David Lynch on a Razor scooter.
The like,
What's up, bitches?
I mean, anything you could do with him is funny.
that is true.
Like
And that's the thing he knows about himself.
He
I
knows
think.
it.
Yes.
you say like the bad versions of something like this. There's Freaks, which is the masterpiece.
A master. Yeah.
And then, like, to me, every bad version is like any Del Toro getting within 100 yards of something like this is like the version I don't want of something like this.
I like Del Toro, but I would not trust him to make this movie.
No,
in
and
any
that's why
circumstances.
and that is most
he would
things he's
make a
attached.
very sincere film.
Most things he's attached to, I think, like I wouldn't trust him with this movie under any
But
circumstance.
like, look, this is a reductive, two reductive comparison points, right? But the whole time I kept watching this, I just kept thinking about, because it also come out in a different episode we recorded recently, David. But the whole time I was watching this, I kept thinking, God, I hate Bogdanovich's mask so much.
I want to mention that at the end of this movie. Yeah,
I don't like the film at all. We talk about
Yeah.
that on a coming episode.
Right. And even like Wonder, which I don't think is like a terrible movie, but it's just
I mean,
like,
it'd be funny if you bodied Wonder right now, like a movie that really hurt nobody's feelings, but it's not very good. You're right.
but both of those are films that really want to make the audience feel good about themselves for watching the film.
My
you know?
problem with Wonder is that I just was waiting for a Whitebird story to be told, and it just hasn't happened yet.
That movie was shot
Before
15
Elephant
years
Man,
ago.
yes,
That movie was shot. Are you familiar with Whitebird: A Wonder Story?
that's what it's called.
no,
right?
and nor do I care to be.
It's
well,
a
there's
spin-off
a-
of the movie Wonder.
Spin-off prequel.
Yes, of course, in which Jacob Tremblay is a boy
I
with
remember.
facial deformities.
Maybe he has a helmet on the poster or something.
He's wearing a little astronaut helmet.
The movie, I believe, is literally someone sits down Jacob Tremblay's character and is like, hey, have you ever heard this other story about like a relative of yours? And then it's just a completely different
David,
thing.
You are wrong.
Am I wrong?
So much more insane.
The slinky side over David's head is getting bigger, and Griffin's side is getting smaller.
There is a character in Wonder who bullies.
Oh, right. It's the bully.
Jacob
It's not
Tremblay.
Jacob Tremblay. Right.
And learns to be a little bit less of an asshole.
Right.
And in this movie, a sequel spinoff, the bully from Wonder goes to visit his grandmother, played by Helen Mirren. And it's like, honk Jew, boring grandma. And she goes, do you know that I was in the Holocaust?
Right.
And then the movie is the story of her surviving the Holocaust.
I like that.
It is directed by Mark Forster.
Okay.
It finished filming
I know him, yeah.
No.
a full calendar year before A Man Called Otto began filming.
Right.
A movie that is now 2 years old.
Coming out in October, baby.
Yes.
Oh, it hasn't come out yet.
Nope.
No, White Bird of Wonder Story played at international film festivals 2 years ago and still has not been released. And I think has gotten fully released in other countries.
It has. Guillermo del Toro, by the way, calls Elephant Man an unlikely perfect fusion of talents.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, hard agree.
All right, so
But
where do
it's
we
not on
leave
his
off?
top 10.
Where do we leave off
His
since we just cut most of that chunk out?
And people need to know about White Bird of Wonder Story.
I don't know
I
if they
love that it got
I feel
cut
like there
out.
was some episode recently where like Griffin started getting ramped up, and then there's like, and then it's like technical difficulties, and then the audio just like, all due respect to the editing, at some point it's just like cuts back in, and I was like, something got cut out.
It's like there was just like an insert of like Griffin, and there's like a cuckoo coming out of his head, like or whatever, and it's like, please stand by.
There was one where I was like, here comes, Griffin's getting hot, and then it's just like, so anyway, back in the plot.
So anyway, back in the plot of The Elephant Man, he is kidnapped by Freddie Jones, right? Re-kidnapped by Bites.
After he's humiliated so
Right.
thoroughly.
And he is put back on show, but he is like weak and dying at
But
this
these had
point.
fallen out of
Right.
favor in
Right.
which
Morals
historically
were turning on
historically
them,
they
yes.
were historically that was already what happened to him pre-hospital, was that he had no longer been able to make a living because this kind of spectacle was already falling out of favor at the time. So originally what happened in the real story is that then they went to the continent. And it was
Right.
there that he was, what we next see in the movie, sort of abandoned. And then they found Treves' business card, calling card. And then that was how he ended up ultimately with Treves. So the movie
He came back to him.
shifts
sure.
that narrative from like the continent and his ultimate bottoming out.
Right, and I feel like the "I am not an animal" scene, like so obviously, right? He's in the circuit. We talk about he's freed by
in
fellow
reality,
circus.
it was Belgium. Here, it kind of seems like it is Belgium or France or something. But then the ferry,
It does-
I think, is the same ferry he took from Belgium across the channel.
It's an easy trip. Short,
I mean, not to jump all the way ahead to the end,
no,
but
we're
it
near
is
the end. Like
it is
There's
the
like 15
But
minutes
I
left.
think
by
that
the
the
time.
collapse in the station is invented, right? Like that's
yeah,
the film,
sure.
obviously, like creating this kind of
He
final
needs
dramatic, like
to stand up for
major
himself.
performance.
It's almost a thrilling sequence. I mean, it is
Yeah.
a thrilling sequence. Like I said,
It's
it
an
reminds me of Friends.
incredibly involving. Like I can imagine seeing this film, not knowing that that's going to happen,
But also, like,
being like just insanely anxious that he will die or truly be like tortured or something horrible is about to
but
happen.
for the performance, like,
Arrested,
he's
whatever.
even just like body language. Again, now we're back to maybe just a hand and an eye. Like,
Yeah.
he's been freed from his shackles of the coverings for who knows how long, months. We're saying, at least months, maybe a year in the movie at this point. And now to see him fully concealed again is very sad for him, because we've seen him in his finery and in his 3-piece suit with his dressing kit, and now he's back in the I need to travel around without being seen look. And even though you're getting nothing, your heart is breaking because of the performance of the body language within
Yes.
the cloak.
And
The sense of resignation.
knocks the kid over in the train station. Like it just feels like there's no control anymore.
Except that the last time we saw him dressed like this, we didn't know anything about his mental capacity.
Right.
And we thought perhaps he was an imbecile, as Treves says. And now you're seeing him back like this, and you know his intelligence and his sensitivity. And you're still seeing him now having been in the cage. He's sick. He's stripped of his identity and his humanity once again. So it's exactly the same as it was an hour and a half earlier, but now you know so much more about him. And it's that much more upsetting.
It's also fascinating to think about in the world of this movie, this guy becoming a sort of important cultural figure, but most people never would have seen him.
They say he's in the papers all the time.
I guess his photograph is starting to get...
No,
but
lots of people wouldn't know.
I don't know if what his photograph would have
That's
been.
the thing. It's like the idea of this guy looms very large.
He was photographed. Yeah, what do you mean?
I know he was.
I'm saying I don't know if his photograph was
is his
in
photograph
the
being
paper.
published in the paper all the time?
Maybe not all the time.
And even then, it's not like if you don't pick up
photographs
the
at the
paper that day, you
we
don't
know this?
fucking Google it later.
Would papers in the Victorian age have run a photograph
I don't
very
think
often?
so.
I feel like when you see old papers, it's often a drawing.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm saying. If you're on this fucking ferry with him and you see this guy with this giant sack on his head and this oversized hat and all this sort of stuff, are you going like, that might be him? That might be him, and I don't know what he looks like.
Well, I think that scene is in another country.
Well, whatever. The thing I love...
No, the I am not an animal scene is at Liverpool Street Station.
Oh, that's when he's returned home.
Sure.
Yes, he is back.
Yeah.
Because there's that heartbreaking shot of him sitting alone on the boat,
Yes.
rocking in the rain,
Right.
which also feels like it could be like a miniature or a matte shot, but he's just brought so low, and that's such an incredible moment. I mean, that's like Dracula passing on the ship in silent cinema. That shot is so great.
The thing I love in movies, is
when there's an elephant man.
When there's the magic,
which
of
most
the screen,
movies fail on that level.
the audience.
Yeah. No, I love so many of the things that are like the fucking knockouts in movies. Part of what's impressive is you're like, I can't believe they got that, right? Some feeling of like some bravura moment of performance, some high-level technical execution, things that feel so complex to actually execute.
Right.
That you're just stunned that there actually is this like a successful capture of a thing.
Right.
I love the flip side of that, which is like you get to the point in this movie where you realize, oh my God, he's going to lie down.
Yes. Right. Like he's going to make this conscious choice.
And it is an emotional knockout, and it is done without dialogue.
Well, but it's done with him peeling down his sheets and gently pressing them with the back of his hand.
And you cut
one
to
by one
the pictures on the wall, which you've seen.
it's-
You've heard him verbalize, I wish I could lie down.
Don't you
like
just
that.
kind of pan to them?
Possibly.
Possibly,
But it's not only that he's making his, he takes off 8 pillows. He's doing this so slowly because after his scene at the theater.
Right, which we have to acknowledge.
Which is just, it is, okay, there's a little bit of factual flubbery here perhaps, but he did perish from, they found him laying down.
Yeah,
sure.
So whether he did it intentionally.
Whether he collapsed and that was what.
They found him laying down apparently sideways across his bed. So there's thoughts that maybe he fell or.
But you've set up this
It's
thing
much less elegant than it is in the movie.
With the Freddie Jones character that like he sleeps sitting up. If he lies down, he'll die. Like this whole thing. And then this moment that can be completely nonverbal, unspoken. It is not like Hurt is like doing this through tears. It is not like on its face a complex performance moment. He does not like swell the score.
Right.
And you just get the sense, as you said, as he's laying out the covers of like, holy shit, this is what's about to happen.
Oh, it's very, you
and
see
he
this
does
in,
it, and it's a knockout, and it's so simple. But the movie has developed a language where that has incredible meaning.
You see this in movies, done very well. Sometimes a character who's accepting their fate and they're, walking out into the cold with no protection or, something where a character is saying like, I'm turning off my life support because my journey is over.
Well, it's in the great Detective Dormer canon of Let Me Sleep cinema.
Okay.
True.
Do
you know, I finally rewatched I watched the original Insomnia.
This is great. Why?
I own the disc for some reason, and I'm trying to watch every disc I have that I've never seen.
Humble brag.
Skarsgård is really good in it, and there is a scene with a pile of garbage. Like that scene is in both films.
Sure.
Scandinavian garbage.
Correct. But there is not a Let Me Sleep moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Any gum?
Not that I remember.
The scene at the theater where he's the guest, kind of the last scene we haven't talked about. Again, like
the scene that moves me the most.
Well, it's very moving, but also like the proscenium, is that the right word? Like,
yes, sure.
That space for Lynch, like that is a holy space from the Lady in the Radiators performance up through Club Silencio.
Of course.
This scene is so like you could do a montage of just Lynch's like the two-dimensional platform of the theater as a space of transcendent emotional catharsis, artificial or otherwise. And this is, as is more literal than those scenes by far. Those other scenes are incredibly metaphorical or dreamlike.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But this is very literal, but it is therefore, I think, even more impactful because it's a space he's clearly always coming back to in his work. And I feel like perhaps to no greater effect here, because here it's about a character's journey rather than about the audience's confusion.
Yes.
Right.
Another perfect line when she says, a man who loves the theater and yet has never been to the theater.
Right. Like that it's like that he's had this experience and it's so perfect for him. Mm-hmm. It almost feels distressing to think about him then suffering again in the future, right? He tries to go back, it won't work out in this. Like there's this like exquisite experience for him.
And yet he says, can we go back? I'd love to go
again.
again.
Yeah, he does, which is, again, very heartbreaking. And I saw either, I forget if this was in the doc or if I read it on Merrick's Wikipedia, but in the final months of his life, he did go to a Christmas pantomime as a guest of this actress.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Right.
This is what he's seeing. For the last several, he talked about it constantly and would repeat the entire story of the show back to all of his doctors and friends as though it was like a real thing. Like he would recount the story of it every day. And it had made this huge impression on him.
Right.
It's very interesting. That's almost sadder than what it is. And like, that's the rare instance where the movie almost downplays. Yeah. You don't have him recounting what he saw over and over again.
Yeah. Right. That he has a sense of closure immediately.
Yeah. Ben, do you like this movie?
It's my first time seeing it.
Oh, interesting. But you probably had some awareness just like through the ether, right?
Yep,
yeah.
for sure.
See, this makes sense that you've seen Twin Peaks and but that's a perfect divide.
Yes.
That you've never seen this, but you're the Twin Peaks guy in the
vice
household.
versa.
I'm the Twin Peaks guy.
David,
Ben's the Twin Peaks guy.
Everything's about you.
I'm the Twin Peaks.
By the way, did you see that I have
feels
this
like a movie
here?
that Ben might get emotional during.
Yeah,
Did you see this, David?
Oh boy, Griffin is once again holding up the
very
pop
good.
Up.
Yeah,
that's definitely the Deadpool DVD art of this episode.
Yep.
Ben, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was very moved by this movie. It made me tear up.
Yeah.
I felt a deep sense of empathy for the character, and I relate to characters like this very often. The downtrodden, the ones that people really look down upon. And I just thought it was outstanding.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
It's a tough movie to find a ton of like fault.
Yeah, and yet for most people, just by virtue of what they love about Lynch, it would not be top tier for them. Because it doesn't, it is great. I don't think anyone could make an argument that it's not.
But I would say that is how I feel about it. It will likely be low on my Lynch list.
Which is,
I think it is my number one. But we'll see how a couple
but that
of
is the
these
most
other rewatches.
It is the most Griffin Lynch film.
I said this to you and you were like, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The business, the shots and the construction of the model, the destruction of it, that it gets reassembled, that he finishes it, that he signs it then at the end. That to me is like a really key image.
Yes.
That's very important throughout the movie.
Ben, I don't know if you saw this, but it's right here on
the
my
film
desk.
was nominated for Best Picture. What? No, what's that?
No, I do want to talk about
about the packaging.
No, like you see this in movies all the time. Someone is building something and you know it's going to get smashed.
Yes,
you know something.
100%.
The thing you
like,
don't expect is that
precious.
it will be reconstructed.
Yeah,
that's true.
And that the film will not belabor the reconstruction.
It's real like Mr. Wilson kind of stuff where it's like, I'm finally going to finish painting my little masterpiece. Oh, here comes Dennis the Menace on his skateboard.
What might he want?
But it's just full of these. Yeah, it's a very heartbreaking representation, and the fact that it was real, and that no one in this room has a little version of it.
Wait a second,
is all the better. Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. To me, I also just love, like, as we mentioned, The Fly, like Phantom of the Opera is my favorite musical. Like Frankenstein, I love. Like I just love the sad monsters, and this is as good as it gets.
Yeah. No, As Good as It Gets is a different movie that was directed by James L. Brooks.
No, this is As Good as It Gets.
Right.
Griffin, yes or no?
That's about a monster who can't stop washing his hands.
I don't want you to look this up. Yes or no? Your gut instinct. McFarlane Toys Elephant Man.
Did it happen?
Yeah.
I know it didn't happen. That's not a gut instinct thing.
I thought I could get you.
I wonder if it would have been seen as insensitive to include him in Movie Maniacs. He did make a Fly figure.
I know.
The film was a success at the box office, grossing about $26 million domestically. at like a $5 million budget. That's pretty good.
8 Academy Award nominations.
It got rave reviews. It got Oscar nominations, but as you say, no wins.
None.
Because they don't even do like a special makeup award. Because sometimes they would do that of like,
I know.
we don't have the category yet, but we'll recognize
it was
it.
Raging Bull, Tess, and Ordinary People basically won everything. Those 3 movies.
Ordinary People obviously wins Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor.
Right.
Raging
Supporting
Bull is
actor
sort
that
of
could have easily gone. I mean, I guess who would be? Wait, you said
Hopkins. I would call
but they didn't nominate him.
They didn't nominate him. Yeah.
Hurt was the one.
Hurt is lead, though, right?
Yeah,
Hurt was nominated
you're like,
for lead.
how did he not win? Oh, wait, it was up against
Because
Raging
Hopkins
Bull.
could have been supporting, even though he's in as much of the movie as.
Yeah.
Hopkins got very little recognition from critics. Even like it's
the
sort
kind of thing that at the time
it's an
people
undersung
wouldn't have,
performance.
Yeah, it'd be like, oh, there's a British actor like yelling and screaming in a top hat in this black and white period.
Right, we see a lot of that. But like Raging Bull and Ordinary People were the critics' picks of that year. Like Melvin and Howard, I think maybe won.
Oh, it wins original screenplay.
It's just
yes, it did. Yeah, but
very
it also won like the
strange.
New York critics. I think but like you don't even see Elephant Man winning critics awards. I think because it has this prestige.
It's Tony.
Brit
It's way
thing.
too Tony.
It's too Tony, right? So
But
it's
you're
like get your nods.
Right.
Yes.
How is this not the critics' favorite? And you're like, oh, because another artsy black and white
That's
period biopic by an American master came out the same year.
But at that time, putting him, neck and neck with Raging Bull, it's a very strange journey for a guy who made a midnight movie 3 years earlier.
Yes.
In the other, the Hoberman Rosenbaum Midnight Movies book of John Waters and Hodorowski,
Mm-hmm.
none of those guys were at the Oscars.
No,
with
like
their
a couple years later,
with their
right.
next movie. That just wasn't the path for them.
Look at like who Lynch is up against in the Best Picture field. He's up against Robert Redford, one of America's favorite movie stars. It's up against Scorsese, who's like 10 years in a career, has already won a Palme d'Or, has had some like
Polanski.
This is his first major comeback. Polanski on the run, and then who's the fifth?
The 1980 Oscars, I just was Coal Miner's Daughter, which is a great movie.
Yeah.
But is obviously more of a, seen as an actor's film or whatever, Michael Afton movie.
But
I
you're
love
right.
It
is
Coal Miner's
wild
Daughter.
for Lynch to already be in that group on his second film, considering what the first movie was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, that's weird. This like gonzo artist made this Oscar player. It's more just like,
But it's an amazing actor year because it's De Niro, it's Duvall and the Great Santini, which could win in a lot of years.
Yeah.
It's Hurt. It's Jack Lemmon in Tribute, which is one of the lesser known tribute, lesser known Lemons, but it's Lemon. And then Peter O'Toole and the Stuntman, which is like an amazing performance. And it's another one of those where you're like, they couldn't even give him the makeup Oscar by now, and it's like, no, fucking De Niro,
Yeah.
So he lost too. I don't, there's no way Hurt wins. Right. And Hurt probably would have been penalized for the makeup does this work for him,
I'm
right?
almost impressed they gave him the nomination, as they should have, but you could see them very easily writing it off.
I think he was an established enough actor as well that he'd been in Midnight Express, he'd been in Alien, like he'd been in movies recently.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's like, oh, it's some unknown they found.
And I think it's undeniable. He won the
agree.
BAFTA.
Yes. And it won the BAFTA for Best Film.
Picture. Yeah, but what, Raging Bull wins cinematography and editing?
It's a good looking movie. Good well-cut
And then
movie.
like Tess won costume and production design, and Ordinary People won adapted screenplay, and
So it goes.
so it goes.
Do you want to play the Backstabbers
yeah.
game?
Can I also?
No, let's skip it.
One thing to put a pin in. Unfinished business prior to box office game.
Sure.
I would like to be exonerated for Griffin's slanderous lies about when I broke the toilet.
Okay, here we go.
I'm going to go pee while this happens.
David?
I have to pee so bad.
David is innocent
Careful.
in this scenario. David did not slander.
Well,
I can reveal
listen
now that
closely.
during the Fincher series, it was I who, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, broke the toilet.
Okay.
What I did was that I kicked the toilet seat off of the toilet with my foot.
You kicked it up so you didn't have to use your hands.
I do not be touching toilets with my hands.
You do not be touching toilets with your hands.
I do not. I mean, in my own house, yes, but
Sure.
as I understand it, this toilet seat is used for one purpose and one purpose only, which is fighting with Griffin for dear life,
Yeah.
day in and day out.
That's, I mean, I wouldn't say the only purpose, but it's primary function, sure.
One time when I said, "How's the studio going?" Ben said, David always has to run home to the kid, and then Griffin stays and takes some shit.
I mean, it's not wrong.
So when I went to relieve myself, I drink a lot of water, ducked out to urinate in the toilet, kicked it up with the toe of my shoe,
Sure.
and it fell off. And I yelled, as Griffin did correctly say, "Oops." But in Griffin's telling of this, as I recall, Griffin says, yeah, our guest went into the bathroom. 10 minutes later, we hear, uh-oh, and then the toilet was broken. It was actually probably closer to 7 seconds.
The part you don't like is the implication that perhaps
it basically makes it sound like
shit was taken in between.
Well,
you're making it sound like
blew our toilet up with the biggest dump in history.
You're making me into Harry and Dumb and Dumber in there.
Okay, fine.
I'm in there with my feet in the air, screaming, and the porcelain shatters.
Correction accepted. Let it pass into law.
You guys had like a flimsy, like public toilet, kind of like horseshoe shaped.
Hey, don't say our.
No, now it's better because
I bought a
so
good
then I
seat.
kicked it up with my foot. You had already had it where only one of the bolts was connected to the bowl.
Okay.
And I just kicked it off. And then you replaced it with a better one. And the story made it seem a lot more foul than it was.
Yeah, for sure. It was an exaggeration.
Griffin's a storyteller, a comedic storyteller.
As a comedic story, it's good. I just feel like the legend of it risks getting out of hand.
And you're setting the record straight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So if anyone listened this far, thank you.
Yeah, but like, I mean, call Rupert Grint because it was like Thunderpants was in there, if you ask me.
A tough 80s box office.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Ben, did you want to say
shout out
something?
to Griffin for replacing the toilet himself.
Good job, Griffin. And also shout out Griffin for, in my opinion, crafting a fairly solid comedic tale.
Thank you.
It was,
I
but
think
behind every comedic tale, there's a little bit of truth, and you want to get ahead of the legend and the truth.
Well, let's offer
Print
a
the legend,
disclaimer
I
at
say.
the end of this episode, much like the end of Elephant Man, saying that this story bears no resemblance to.
Number one at the box. This film comes out in October of 1980.
Okay.
And you've got some of the big sort of
Which
players.
weekend did you say?
It came out October 3rd, I believe.
Oh, so it's in the Saw slot, basically.
Excited for Saw XI? Saw XI not this year.
Opening.
Right? It got pushed.
You could say it's opening in Venom weekend.
That's true. It's not Big Venom weekend.
We talked about.
True.
I mean, we'll talk about this now since this will be relevant when this episode comes out. How annoying it is that Bad Boys Ride or Die didn't come out Big Willie weekend.
It's a nightmare.
We can't even get into it now, but incensed me.
Yeah.
Well, I liked it because it did well. It's a good movie.
These guys, I think, had way more. I mean, I had a lot of fun, but I
He
think
wasn't
these guys
eating popcorn.
Liked it more than I did. If I had popcorn, it would have been extra half a star. But
they just bumped up.
It's what we want.
Ben, can we spoil one thing for you?
Sure.
Guess what the location is of the final set piece at the end of the film. The final sort of showdown with all the villains.
A cemetery.
Gatorland.
Wait,
An abandoned alligator amusement park.
That is
Instead
said,
of the one
that
you've been
is
to.
said
The
to
real,
still
or at least inspired by the real.
Okay.
That is said to still be occupied by a humongous albino occupant.
Yeah, they're like, look, of course we need to go to Gatorland for our final shootout. Also, I should mention there is a 15-foot-long albino alligator on the loose. I'm sure that won't come up again.
And we're not talking about like Kevin Spacey directed indie films of the 90s.
No, there was a
Let us be frank.
15-foot-long DVD copy of albino alligator. Box office.
Number one at the box office in this weekend, Elephant Man, I think, is opening limited. It's not here. Is a comedy, spy film. It's not a film I've seen, but it's I would say a fairly well-known British director directing a muggy American star as like a spy. Like
It's a comedy.
It's a comedy. It was nominated for Best Actor, Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. So,
is it Dudley Moore?
Well,
No.
British muggy American.
No, muggy American. Yes.
Sitcom
The
star?
British director.
Is this sitcom star?
I know he's a big movie star,
He was a
like
big
Oscar-winning movie star.
A big muggy American movie.
These
star.
80s box office games are so hard.
They can be a bit odd.
It's not Dreyfus?
No,
Muggy.
no. If it was Dreyfus, I would say truth-telling. Right. And I would
Should
say
be said, David
universally
is
beloved.
wearing a dress and dancing with a cane right now. He came back from the bathroom with his dress and
He has
cane.
4 stagehands trying to help him get the dress
The
off.
Dreyfus thing is so fucking funny to me. It's just unbelievable.
It's just funny that that guy has spent 30 years being well known to be a huge asshole, and he's like, I got one more act in me, though. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just be remembered as like a regular pain in the ass. Right?
This is his Mr. Holland's opus. This is the project he's been working on his whole life.
I want to lure people in with the safety of a
Jaws.
Jaws.
Talk about Jaws. You heard of Jaws?
And it's like, haha, lock the doors. You know what the problem is with trans kids? It's like, what? What's happening?
These like poor people who just like, yeah, I'll buy a ticket to my local rep cinema.
Just tell
like,
me
an
the
evening with
shark
Dreyfus.
didn't work.
Right? Yeah, like, oh, it was such a pain in the ass. We were on the water, and he's like, pronouns. It's like.
And then he's like dancing. The funny thing is also that then in the news story, it's like there's video of the event, and you're like, oh, this is going to be bad. You watch the video. Everything is fine.
Yeah.
Like no one is booing, no one's yelling. It's just like this is kind of
just like
this sucks.
Yeah, this is a bummer. Like,
Okay, wait. Muggy American star had won an Oscar already at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Huge comedy star.
Right, the kind of guy who maybe a movie ends with his face going.
David.
How long ago was his Oscar?
In 1980. How long in the past was that?
14 years prior.
60s Oscar.
So he's a 60s. It's not a lemon. It's not a
You're
math.
close. It is.
It is a math house. It's a math house spy comedy.
Balsam, did you cough? I was doing Pelham.
What is this?
It's not it's a movie I know, like, I think through like box office.
Who's the
and
director?
Shit. That Ronald Neame.
Oh, sure.
Is it Hopscotch?
Hopscotch.
Oh, that's what that is. I know that title. I never knew what that movie was.
Which has like a Criterion release. Like I think it's probably
the
like
only
a
reason I
somewhat
was aware.
regarded
One of those
film.
things where I was like, what is this movie? I've never heard of.
Exactly.
It's like one of the first 100 Criterion discs, and you're like, guess I need to see this because I don't know what it is.
But you've still never watched it.
No, I saw it at the.
Oh, really? Okay.
In my younger years.
The Criterion cover is great. It's a beautiful caricature of Mathtown.
Well, those.
Yeah.
That guy was really tough to do a caricature of those. He didn't have any features you could really emphasize.
Love Mathtown. We were
Love
so
him.
lucky
I
that
love
we
him
got
too.
to grow up during like the fourth decade of his marquee movie stardom.
Yeah. Megastar Mathtown.
I agree. Number
Speaking
two.
of Mr. Wilson,
Yeah.
who I brought up just a few
Himself.
minutes ago.
Number two at the box office is a film we'll cover on the Patreon one day, and that it's a sequel in a hot franchise. Hot to you and I.
You and I love it.
No, we've never seen it, but we're just like, what's going on there?
Is it Oh God, You Devil?
Oh God, Book 2.
Okay.
And the Lord said, let there be another movie. And lo, there was another movie. George
that the
Burns?
tagline?
Yes.
That's the funniest thing about boxoffice.ga.me is that when it's an 80s weekend, the first clue I always take is tagline.
Yeah.
Because like
The tagline will describe.
75% of the time, a tagline from the 80s is like,
Oh God is back with another film.
Yes, exactly. Or it'll be like, there's just the taglines are absolutely incredible. Where it's like the other day, it was like spies like us, and it's like with spies like these, who needs enemies?
You remember seeing Porky's, but what happened the next day?
Taglines are
That was my big question.
Porky's the next day.
When I saw Porky's, I was like, I just wish I knew what happened the next day.
And what, then everyone went to sleep?
Number 3 at the box office is a cult slasher film
Okay. Alex,
with a great name.
give me something about the theming. Is it like a character based?
It's set on a location, and that's the name of the
place.
movie.
It's not
Yes.
Sleepaway Camp.
No.
It's the studio.
It was a 20th Century Fox release, although I think it was an indie film they bought.
20th Century
basically.
Fox release a slasher based on a location.
It's based on a
It's
place.
set in a location, and that's the name of the
That's the
movie.
title, is the location.
Yes. It's a good title. Director of it eventually made a Bond movie that
It's
we've covered on
is
this
it a
podcast.
Spottiswoode film?
Roger Spottiswoode.
It's a location. And it was released by the fine folks at
Is it
20th
set in
Century
America?
Fox.
Or is it like an Australian thing?
It's set in America. It's set in Illinois, I believe.
Spottiswoode.
Is it like it's a chopping mall?
You're close.
Fuck, it's
It's
something.
not Chopping Mall.
But it's-
I feel like it's a film with a similar reputation to Chopping Mall. Sort of like, slasher campy classic.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you the next clue.
Okay.
The pitch for this film was Halloween on a Train.
Is it Terror Train?
Terror Train.
Oh,
There we
never
go.
seen that.
With Ben Johnson and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And a
I
guy in
scored
like a
big.
Groucho mask.
I scored big points on it in Cinematrix the other day. Jamie Lee Curtis horror. I was like, that's the one that no one's gonna
Right,
guess.
you're smart.
Yeah.
Yes. I just guessed all Halloweens for that. Resurrection, H2O, and 2.
You're real proud of yourself.
Well, it wasn't that good. Number 4 at the box office, Best Picture winner of 1980.
Ordinary People.
That's right. A good movie.
Yeah, good ass movie. A
very
movie I
good.
like a tremendous amount.
Number 5 at the box office. It's from the director of The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, but it's not that. It's a romantic comedy, though.
Porky's the Next Day.
It stars someone who would one day work with David Lynch and one other day be arrested.
So it's a Robert Blake movie?
Robert Blake's in this film.
What is this movie called?
It also stars Diane Cannon. There's no way you know what this movie is. I've never heard of it. It's called Coast to Coast.
Yeah, absolutely.
A romantic comedy starring Diane Cannon and Robert Blake.
Oh, the Sparks.
I'm seeing here that it got 1 Golden Raspberry Award nomination for Worst Actor.
Okay.
Have you heard of
But
No,
Best
never heard of
Murderer.
Don't know Coast to Coast.
Other films in the top 10, Stardust Memories is opening this week. One of my favorite Woody Allen movies.
A great movie.
Yes, great film.
Unfortunate. For better or worse.
Yeah, no, for
Just
sure.
an incredible film.
Very interesting movie. Divine Madness, which is a concert film of
Bette
Bette
Midler. The Divine Miss M.
You've got Somewhere in Time, which is a Christopher Reeve movie.
Yeah, that's
that the Jack
that's
the
a
Ripper?
Nicholas Meyer movie.
Yeah, I've never seen.
People love that film.
Wait, is that the Jack the Ripper one, or
No,
is that Time
it's-
After Time?
That's Time After Time.
It's Genotsvark.
Somewhere in Time is sort of the original time traveler's wife kind of
Right.
romance.
It's like he sees a photo and
Tim and
like
Jane
goes
Seymour?
back in time. Correct.
People adore that film.
Wow. I know the poster.
Yeah.
You've
Malcolm McDowell? No,
he's the
that's
one
Time
I'm
After
thinking
Time.
of.
You've got Christopher Plummer, though.
Okay.
That's something.
Nice
right?
work if you can get it.
There is also a film called In God We Trust, but the S is a dollar sign.
course.
Is that the Marty Feldman one?
Correct. The Marty Feldman directed
Andy
and
Kaufman.
starring with Peter Boyle and Andy Kaufman.
Televangelist. Yeah.
And then some piece of shit I've never heard of called The Empire Strikes Back is number 10 at the box
Well,
office.
yes, Ben, I don't know if you know this, and we'll talk about it next week, but off of this film, Elephant Man, where does David Lynch go next in his career? What's the obvious next path for him? George Lucas rings him up and says, I obviously want you to direct Return of the Jedi. Do you know this?
It makes sense.
He was
I think I may have heard this
choice.
legend come up way back in the Star Wars days.
And that's how you end up with him doing Dune instead, but we'll talk about that.
That's
It's just
crazy.
interesting to think about Elephant Man and Empire Strikes Back existing in theaters together at the same time, and Lucas being like, let's put these two together.
It makes sense because that's the same pitch that happens with Dune, obviously. And Dune is the thing that attracts him more because it's like, well, I'm not doing someone else's work here.
I
right?
get to-
you know.
But that's the other thing, like,
Build it from the ground
bring
up.
it back to the beginning of the movie, like, Hollywood people have always respected him. He
Yeah.
has never been seen as like that guy just has to do his own thing.
No.
He's always been mainstream enough that somebody's like,
They want him
come work
to-
for us.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not anymore, but like he had a show on ABC. He had studio offers to make big movies. Someone's
But also to
always
the
saying
extent
like,
that,
you're
Netflix
incredibly
gave him a
talented.
ton of money to make the Monkey short,
Right.
where they're just like, we want to have a David Lynch project.
Right.
He still is seen as like a big coup.
And they don't give money to just anybody.
No, they got tight ass wallets.
He's very accepted by the mainstream in a way that doesn't quite make sense considering how transgressive some of his work is.
I feel like he is also the surreal, transgressive, arty filmmaker that everybody knows, and thus lots of people are like, yes, I've been made to watch a David Lynch film or two, maybe by a friend or someone I dated or something, and I didn't enjoy that. Like
He's
also
like
has
weirdly the most mainstream cult figure, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. He's like Salvador Dali, like
Yeah.
a surrealist artist who would go on the Tonight
The
Show
TV,
and
right.
And
clown
gets
around.
to basically be the one person
that's the other thing
embodiment
about
of
him.
like, as you said, I'll watch one of these weirdo fucking movies.
But he is a personality unto himself. He's funny. He's charismatic on television. He's a unique individual. No one's like him.
He got rid of the Woody Woodpecker dolls.
He did.
He has a funny voice.
Private
like that
Select
guy?
Coffee.
DL? Where's my slinky?
Okay, this is over. Alex, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Big 9.
Jesus, we went 3 hours. Enough. Enough.
You
No
were
more.
surprised?
I put the fucking clock up for you to manage it.
I know.
We're fine.
A triumph.
Yeah. I hope they're happy. I
the
hope
thing,
everyone
though.
enjoys.
You'll cut out that entire riff about.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
that's, if
Major
anything-
cut is reporting for duty. Yes.
We didn't even get into my thing that I told Griffin I needed to tee up someday, or at least for him, is the weird incongruity of the later films of the Beethoven franchise.
Oh, David.
So keep that in mind for next time.
That I think that the argument for you coming on for a slightly less remembered film is
40 minutes of Beethoven.
Gives us a little space to maybe talk more Beethoven or whatever. Like, whereas like The Elephant Man, it's like we don't want to discount the majesty of this film and this man's experience and suffering. Not the majesty of his suffering, the profundity of it. You get me.
Griffin's opened the little diorama one more time, which means
I honestly think it's not coming across as funny to listeners, like the little stinker face he has while he's lifting up this totally ordinary little cutout on his stupid fucking disc.
It's as funny as Deadpool on the cover of a DVD.
I mean, it's funnier than that because that's not funny.
I'm so relieved that it's a Paramount picture and Deadpool can't slap his face on an Elephant Man disc yet.
Right.
Okay.
He can slap his face in The Straight Story, though.
That's true. Alex, right here, right now, by the time this episode comes out, will be streamable, maybe? Rentable?
Yeah, the Ghost concert film that I co-directed, that Griffin and Ben play a huge role in the promotional campaign of.
In the expanded universe.
It'll be out.
Pretty cool.
We're days away from the theatrical release.
This episode is dropping September 8th. So yes, I don't know.
So the theatrical release is next week from the time we're recording it.
Oh, okay.
The theatrical release comes out next
months in
week,
the
and then they're
past.
going to announce the streaming release immediately after.
Okay, great. So people
But your guys' thing's already online.
Yeah, go dig. Find it.
We'll have links to both stuff.
Yeah.
Both things.
I got my own popcorn bucket.
Yeah,
something-
you got two?
that's
I
huge.
don't own it yet, but the movie has its own popcorn buckets.
Are you going to start showing up to like other theaters with your popcorn bucket and hand it to them like, fill that up, my man?
I might.
All right. Good.
To be clear, I don't have the bucket in my possession yet.
You said it. It hasn't arrived yet, but soon.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for helping to produce the show. Thank you to JJ Birch for our research, AJ McKeon for our editing, Lee Montgomery and the Great American Elf for our theme song, Joe Bowen and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. You can go to blankcheckpod.com for links to some real nerdy shit, including our Patreon Blank Check special features, where we're going through that famous franchise, movies based on tabletop games.
Yep.
You're a winner. You're Victor.
Hey, also,
That's
And doing Lynch shorts, as we said.
Yeah, the Lynch
Yeah.
Shorts episode is coming up soon.
What are the
so
other
enjoy
Lynch
that.
bonuses?
We'll figure it out. Ben?
Also, this has been a visual heavy, like we've referenced a lot of visuals on this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So make sure to follow Blank Check on Instagram at Blank Check Pod.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be posting a ton of the photos and
This packaging, the Porky's Club.
yes, all the things.
My Halloween costume.
So
Yes.
if you
Yeah,
want
please send
to
in
be
the pic.
able to see these images, please check it out.
Tune in next week for Beetlejuice.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't say it again.
I'm saying it one time, two times. I'm saying the two times. David?
I said the juice is loose.
I know, but just be very careful.
A great kind of animal is beetle.
David? I hope it is good.
I hope it's at least fun.
I hope it's fun.
Inside Out 2's tracking just got bumped up to 90.
I'm telling you, I think it's making 100, and 4 months from now, it'll either look smart or wrong in a way no one gives a shit about.
Correct.
And Will Smith's not in it, so I don't think it's going to make any money.
He's our only star.
At July 4th weekend, at least.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Goodbye. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody.
And
Wait,
as
what's
always,
that? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, he's holding it up again.
no applause? Thank you.
Very, very light golf claps.